Welcome to the latest edition of Looped in Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. I am Tim Wood, the editor and owner of Looped Weekly and Over Media. Proud to be with you for another week. Mr. Lou Blassie behind the glass. How are you, sir?
Very good, very good.
Excellent. So today's show, we're kicking it off in grand fashion. We have the winner of the first group of Oprah Winfrey Scholars at UMass Lowell. Six students selected, two of them from Methuen. Nick, last name? Abarisk. I want to get it wrong. Nick is a Methuenite. We will talk to him, and we will also talk to City Council Chairwoman Jennifer Canan about the Charter Review Committee has got an initial set of findings, and they will have their first open hearing tonight. So we will talk to Jennifer in a little bit, but as you can see, we've got our first guest. Nick, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Listen, congratulations on this. I mean, first, it was crazy to hear that Oprah was coming to speak at UMass. You know, the Oprah hysteria, and then to hear, you know, they're giving out $1.5 million worth of scholarships, and then on the spot she matched it. Like everybody tells me that was a complete surprise, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You're selling that?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
100%.
Okay. I mean, that's crazy. So now this scholarship fund has $3 million endowed to it, and they had 6 initial Oprah Winfrey Scholars, and we had 2 from Methuen. Daphne. Do you know? Yeah, I know Daphne.
Her last name.
Yeah, I'm blanking on her last name at the moment. Yep. She is another graduate of Methuen High School. We're gonna talk to her at a different time. We had some scheduling issues getting her in here for right after the holidays, but we will talk to Daphne but you on the spotlight, sir. Congratulations and welcome. Tell me just in terms of how it came to be. What was the process in terms of you going about looking to get the scholarship? How'd you find out? All that good stuff.
Well, normally with scholarships at UML, as far as I know, we apply for them.
Yep.
For this one, I actually didn't. Nobody really knew it was even a thing. I mean, like you said, it's the first year we've ever done this.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's never been here before. So one day I got an email saying that I was a recipient of the Oprah Winfrey Scholarship. At first, I was like, I don't know what that is, but thank you.
I know Oprah. Yeah.
Exactly. But I had recently found out that I was going to one of the student master class that she was doing when she came. And I knew that was a nomination process. So I figured I was nominated by my professors, and then I found out that I was.
Now, there was a class before. You had a separate class with her before the lecture series?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So it was probably around 200 students between undergrad, graduate, athletes, things like that. And we were all in the room with her. We had about an hour with her, and pretty much 4 or 5 students got to ask her a question, and she just kind of gave her feedback on everything.
All Q&A type stuff, or yeah?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Originally, I think they were going to have the moderator, one of the professors who actually is the reason she came to UML. Andre, yes.
Yeah.
So they're friends. He's known her for a long time now, but they just opened it up to students to ask questions.
Andre
Debuse.
The third.
Yes.
And he's a well-known author in his own right.
Absolutely.
What the book?
House of Sand and Fog.
Thank you.
Is the one that
I always remember it from the movie.
Yes.
From Jennifer Connelly and I believe Ben Kingsley. No,
I never watched the movie.
I think you're right.
You're too busy. You're too busy to be watching movies. So, in terms of when you found out in terms of the scholarship, I mean, what are you thinking in terms of, like, I'm an Oprah Winfrey Scholar?
I actually didn't really know what to think. Like I said, I mean, I didn't even know what it was. I had to ask a friend, like, have you heard of this? Do you know about this? Nobody really knew about it. And then I talked to my professor, and she told me about it. But I mean, it's a huge honor. This is something that obviously has never happened before, and there's only so few of us out of thousands and thousands of students. So to be picked and to be recognized for the things that I've done throughout my college years, and to be endowed with such an honorable scholarship, I mean, it's an amazing feeling.
You guys must have impressed her in the master class or something. I mean, she doesn't do this all the time in terms of just matching scholarships on the spot. You know, that's pretty heady stuff. So I mean, you guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit in terms of yourself and how you got to UMass Lowell.
Sure. So I mean, like I said, as we said, I went to Methuen High. Class of 2015.
Of course.
Yes. Yep. And basically my entire family has gone to UMass Lowell, cousins and my brother and everyone. So we. So I applied, got in. I decided it's probably the best based on what I wanted to do originally, which was biology. That's what I went in as. So I figured I could commute, save some money. I know a lot of people from Methuen who were going there, so I'd have some friends. So that's pretty much how I got there.
So now we've got a current city councilor at UMass Lowell, and now an Oprah Winfrey Scholar. So heady stuff.
Yes.
So in terms of what are you concentrating on at UMass Lowell?
So right now I'm actually an English major, so I switched my major my second year of college. I'm an English major with a concentration in theater arts and now a minor in biology. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything, but theater is pretty much the thing that I do most of.
How cliche.
I know, right?
English major, biology minor.
Yep.
Yeah. See that combination all the time.
Yeah.
Fit the biology in between the theater and the English.
I guess.
Of course, perfectly balanced. Yeah.
I mean, I found ways. I found a way to kind of make them commingle with each other. I do one of my jobs at school is I'm a sim patient actor, so I act for the nursing students when they do their psych rotation.
Yeah.
So I act out different patient. Yeah. I act out different patient scenarios. So we've done depression, eating disorder, things like that. So that's kind of one of my jobs.
It's not just Kramer and Seinfeld.
Wow.
I'm sure you've heard that before. Yeah, because that was a famous Seinfeld episode where, so you get tagged them out with the school.
Yes, and I get paid for it,
which is nice. A nice important part.
Win-win, baby.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, have you been in any productions at UMass Lowell?
Yes, I've been in quite a few now. The recent one that we just did was Macbeth. I was lucky enough to play Macbeth in the show, which was amazing. I mean, it really took so much of my soul and body and time. It was truly an experience unlike any other. Yeah.
How do you? So obviously you learn the lines, but I mean, how do you make Macbeth your own?
People have asked me that, and people have also asked me the question, how do you become a different person? And honestly, with Shakespeare, this is my second Shakespeare play that I've done, and I find that with Shakespeare, finding connection with the text is always going to help you, because the text is so rich and so heavy. So all the hours that I spent on my script work was just me defining words and figuring out what they mean. And the closer you get to the text and the more you get out of it is how you make it your own and how you understand the true meaning behind what you're saying. With contemporary plays, it's a little bit different. There's a lot more what we call subtext, which is, I'm sure what you know, it's what's under the line. With Shakespeare, there's none of that. I mean, it's pretty much all out there, and by knowing what's happening, then you're able to do what you need to do on stage.
But in dealing with the meaning, you have to deal with Shakespeare's context.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of difference from contemporary meaning.
Yeah, and something I found when I was actually going through the play and defining words, I mean, he used some words 15 different ways. You know, I used this giant dictionary, and the dictionary basically picks out every single word Shakespeare's ever used in any play and puts it in one 2-volume set. And I mean, you look up a word and there's just 50,
he used
60
it this way in this play, this way in this play,
Yep.
Was that the favorite, just because of the challenge? Was that your favorite in terms of all of the plays you've done, or the productions?
So I would say at UML, probably that's been my favorite. Overall, I've done some things outside of school. My favorite role that I've done thus far is probably Of Mice and Men. I was Lenny. Have you guys read that book before?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was probably, I would say, my favorite one, but I would say Macbeth has probably been the biggest challenge thus far.
Was that like North Shore Players or something? Or
No, it was way far, like 50 miles down at
No
some
kidding.
community theater, Hopkinton.
Nice.
Yeah, it was Enter Stage Left Theater is the name of the community theater. So yeah,
Nice plug.
Yeah,
Well played. In terms of is theater something that you're looking to continue with?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's totally where my heart is and where I find I spend most of my time and what takes up. I mean, I'm done now, and I'm wondering what's next. You know, I always want to keep going with it.
So, as a career, do you think, or
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Now, does that mean you're headed to New York after this?
I don't know if that's what that means. I mean, I think it's interesting when you tell someone, you know, I want to be an actor. Some people probably roll their eyes and say, oh yeah, sure, good luck with that. I mean, it's just like anything else. It requires education.
Absolutely.
So that's next step is hopefully an education.
So when I'm thinking of an Oprah scholarship, I'm not thinking of an actor. I'm not thinking of theater.
Yeah.
What earned you the nomination?
I mean,
what did someone see in you and present for the scholarship?
I think that it's not just about the fact that I do theater, but a lot of what I'm involved in at school. I mean, I would say, or what people have told me, is that I'm a leader in the theater community at school. But I mean, I'm an intern for the theater arts program, publicity and marketing intern. So I am involved in that. I told you I do the sim patient.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a student mentor for a first year seminar class, so I go in every Monday when they have their class, and I'm kind of the student voice of reason, kind of guiding them. So I think it's not necessarily about just the fact that I act, but how I find leadership and communication and all those different skills within it, and how I make connections and things like that. Yeah.
That's outstanding. In terms, how did your time at Methuen High kind of prepare you for this? Were you in a lot of productions there as well?
Yeah, I was. Mostly my second and third year at MHS is when I really did most of the things. A couple things senior year, but are you saying in terms of like how that prepared me for theater,
or just is that where you fell in love with it?
Yeah, I mean, I had started it in middle school and then kind of ran away from it, and then I did it in high school again, and then I kind of ran away from it, and I'm back again. But
keeps pulling you back in.
That's how you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the start was at Methuen High. That's where I knew what I wanted to do, and that's where I found my love for being on stage.
How about family? How do you have siblings?
Yes, I have an older and a younger brother.
Nice.
Yes.
Names?
My older brother is Joe. My younger brother is Elias.
Both still around, or?
Yes. So
Yeah.
my younger brother is still actually at MHS right now. He's a sophomore, I think. My older brother
might know him.
Yeah.
My son's a sophomore
Oh,
there too
really?
as well. Yeah.
My older brother's UML graduate. He's still at home, but yeah.
Great. And you guys, you said you'd been in Methuen for you've lived here for probably 10, 11 years.
Yeah, so I started in Methuen Public Schools 6th grade. Before that, I was in Lawrence.
In Lawrence, okay.
Yes.
And born in Lawrence, or?
Yes, I was born in Lawrence.
Great. In terms of just your time at UMass Lowell,
Mm-hmm.
like how did the path develop for you in terms of, you said you switched
Mm-hmm.
majors. How did the path get to here with the theater and the biology
Mm-hmm.
component?
From the beginning?
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's take it back to birth. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
No, so I would say it started with the education that I got at Methuen High because I was very science heavy. My senior year, I think I took 3 science classes. I stopped taking history classes my junior year. I knew what I wanted to do, or I thought I did. So science was something that was kind of a passion of mine. They really had a lot of good AP classes, so I was able to take AP classes. The teachers really cared and really pushed us. So that's where I decided to do the biology. I had a lot of amazing biology teachers, and they kind of helped me along. So that's when I decided to do bio. I wanted to be a teacher. Got to UML, I was taking biology classes, actually then changed my mind and decided I wanted to be a pharmacist. So I actually work at a pharmacy as well. I've been there for almost, yes.
Where?
The Walgreens in North Andover.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so I've been there for almost 4 years now. I started that senior year of high school. Wanted to be a pharmacist. I was taking prereqs in the winter, in the summer. I was not even supposed to be at UML after 2 years. I had my whole life planned out. I knew what I was going to do. And then I had to take a humanities class or like an arts class or something. And a friend was like, just take acting. You've done acting before. It'll be an easy A. And secretly I knew I was going to give, this was my ultimatum class. I was like, all right, I can't stop thinking about it. Let's see. This is it. So if I take this class and I decide I want it, we'll see what happens. But if I take this class and decide I don't want it, I'm never coming back ever again. Took the class.
This is it.
Yes. I took the class and the rest is history.
No, but we don't like history. So in terms of working at the pharmacy, do you help fill prescriptions, or do you drive through customer service? How does that work? I always think everyone in the pharmacy is a pharmacist, but
no. So I'm a certified pharmacy technician.
Yeah.
So I pretty much do everything other than check what's been put in the bottle and give patients advice on what to take for medications, for over-the-counter medications. That's the pharmacist's job. But pretty much I see your prescription from the moment it comes in to the moment it leaves. So you bring in your prescription, I take it, I scan it into the system, I make it digital, I fill the prescription with, I actually fill the pills and I put them in the bottle, label the bottle, hand it off to the pharmacist. They check and make sure that it's the right thing, and then I sell it.
So where does that fit in? Is that kind of the potential steady job while you're pursuing the acting?
Yeah, we like to eat while he acts.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
Eating is preferential. Yeah.
So actors like to call it our survival job.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be one of, if I have multiple, which I probably will, as most do. I think the cliche is that people are waiters or bartenders. I may end up in that, depending.
I mean, nowadays it's DoorDash and Shipped and Amazon Flex, and it's
Uber
crazy.
Eats and all
Uber,
that.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you work in food service, though, you'll never starve.
That's
You
true.
can work anywhere at any time.
I'll take the leftovers home.
Well, no, I mean, you can work anywhere for anybody.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good
That's
club
true.
to have in a bag.
Yeah,
Pharmacy's
for sure.
not a good. It's pretty
That's
good
good too, yeah.
club to
Yeah.
have in the
These
bag
days,
too.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Why the pharmacy end of it?
So my senior year of high school, my older cousin, who also went to Methuen High, she started at a pharmacy just as a job when she first started college. And she was like, "Hey, you should try this," and I was like, "Sure." And then I fell in love with it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to push pills for the rest of my life. That sounds awesome." So I
wouldn't phrase it that way.
Yeah, right.
But so I started just because she had done it and she said it was really good, and I figured it might be like a good science-y job, something to learn. Maybe I want to be in the medical field or whatever. I mean, I still love it. I mean, I've been there for almost 4 years now, so I still do much love what I do. I'll always have science and medicine, all that kind of in me, but definitely doesn't take precedence over the acting.
So you said you caught it a little bit in middle school. Like, were you a performer in the family as you were growing up, or?
I don't think so. I mean, growing up, I don't know if this relates, but I was a crybaby, so I think I always maybe wanted the attention. I'm not sure, but I wasn't really a
It's
performer.
where the drama began.
Yeah, exactly. I've always been dramatic.
Okay.
And my friends will tell me that I still am.
As he just broke the fourth wall for that.
Yes.
But no, not really. I mean, I started it 8th grade year. It was my last year before, I did the play. And the crazy thing is I wasn't scared to be on stage. And I think that's where I was like, that's interesting. This doesn't make me nervous. But coming from a family that's extremely strict, I come from a Lebanese family, so Middle Eastern, my parents are immigrants,
Yeah.
so the only things that are really acceptable are, engineer, doctor, lawyer, that stuff. So it was kind of always something that I strayed from. I was like, this might not be too acceptable in my family, but high school, my friends dragged me to an audition after I had sworn it off after middle school and whatever, and so I just kind of kept coming back to it. But
I'll be honest with you, in my experience here in Methuen, like, your story is almost cliche now among the Lebanese.
Yes.
Like, I did a story on this amazing poet, Jess.
Oh, I know her. We're good friends.
Yeah. So and same thing.
Yep.
Rigid family. Mom, not as a little bit a little bit more flexible, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing though to be able to set your own future and not have to be to respect your culture and your upbringing.
Yeah.
But then to have parents and family that lets you go your own way.
Yeah, I mean, well, they didn't know about it, actually.
Really?
My dad still doesn't know, so hopefully he doesn't watch this. But no,
What?
so, yeah, no, my parent, I mean, my mom knows now.
Yeah.
I told her, actually, the night of Oprah, because I was just so inspired. I mean, I really was, actually, truly came out of that experience a changed man. I mean, I learned so much from her, but I didn't tell them. I told them, Mom and Dad, I'm changing my major to English, because technically I was. And they were like, oh, you want to be an English teacher? Go for it. And I was like, hey, you said it, not me. So I never, and they knew I was doing plays, and they would come to some of them and whatever, but I would always get these questions like, this is just a hobby, right? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. So I that's 2 years now. So I finally told her, 2 weeks ago, and much to opposite of what I thought she was going to do, she actually was quite supportive.
But you've hedged your bet pretty well. The
God,
pharmacy thing is a pretty good hedging of the bet. What were you gonna say, Lou?
No, because as I've been watching this story unfold, I've been thinking he's hedging his bets all over. I mean, you like the science end of it, but
Yes.
you're dealing with your parents too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and they liked it too.
Yeah.
When I told them
Sure.
I wanted to be a pharmacist, they were like, "That's amazing." I mean, you would have you would have thought I gave them, $1 million or something.
Yeah.
That's like truly. I mean, it's a dream for them to see their children do
Absolutely.
these big jobs that pay 6 figures and
Sure.
whatever. And when you tell them, you want to be an actor, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to get from them. So
I mean, have you seen what Julia Roberts make? Have you seen what Dustin Hoffman make?
Well,
I mean, yeah, but that's
They're off the hook for college now, so
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
they
that's
can throw you a little money.
yeah,
I
right.
dated myself with the Dustin Hoffman reference.
Yeah, you kinda
It just-
did, but
Wow.
it's all right.
Wow.
I mean, I know him, so it's
Yeah.
not too bad. But I mean, they say 0.5% of people actually make it to that point. So
Absolutely.
I mean, you really never know.
You just mentioned being inspired by the interaction with Oprah. So
Yes.
what was the takeaway from the class? What did you walk out of it with?
So there were 2 things that I would say I mostly walked away from it with. One of them being the thing that she said, I hope you guys take this with you. And one thing that really spoke to me. So the thing that she talked about was intention, and why knowing what your intentions are when you do things are so important, and stopping and asking yourself why am I doing this? Who am I serving? What am I, how am I helping myself or others or whatever? So that's one thing that I think I'll always remember, is ask myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is it for a good cause, whether that be for myself or for other people,
Sure.
as long as I can justify it, and then move from there. If I'm doing it to please someone else, that might not be that might not be the best reason. But the second thing that that really resonated with me was a story that she told about when she was a child, and her grandmother was a maid to a white family. And she said her grandmother would tell her, this family's so nice to me. I really hope one day you grow up and find yourself some nice white folk. I mean, and that really struck a chord with me, because the reality of the world that Oprah lived in when she was young was just that. I mean, segregation, and she was a female. I mean, the best possible scenario for her was to grow up and be a maid to a nice white family. The worst possible scenario was to be a maid to a mean white family. I mean, that was the reality that she had to grow up with. And to see to see her surpass all of that in the time that she grew up in,
Yeah.
then what's impossible?
So people laugh at me because I always used to watch Oprah. She's always been a hero, because like you said it. It's like she is the absolute example that anything is possible. She has broken through every ceiling that was set for her.
Yep.
In every step of her life. And I mean, in terms of getting in as a talk show host, first of all, a female, then a black female.
Yep.
I mean, it was unheard of.
Exactly.
And she just keeps setting bars and keeps challenging herself right up through. And it really, what was it like to be on stage with her, to take that photo with her, to be announced next to her? And I mean, what was that? I mean, as much as it's like you're in that select group of 200, now you're on stage with her.
Yeah. Being on stage with her was very interesting. I wasn't nervous, which is crazy. But I mean, maybe because I'm on stage all the time. But I mean, it's Oprah, right? Like I'm literally standing next to Oprah.
I mean, the photo we put the photo. We did a story in the last edition of Loop Weekly on this, and the photo is on the cover, and you look like you guys. You had that look on your face like you guys have been best friends for 20 years.
So that's all because of her. I mean, when I walked on stage, we all walked up and we were shaking her hand, and she knew us. She knew our names only because we had written thank you letters to her, and she read them.
Yep.
For all scholarships, you have to write a thank you letter to the donor. And so she basically just needed the face to match the name. So she knew our name. She knew my name specifically because I was the only male. So there's only one Nick that wrote into her. But when she shook my hand, she actually held on to my hand when she turned out to continue talking to everybody, just as if you would a mother to a child or a friend to a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she made it so that we were comfortable with her, and that it was just a human to human. She did not put herself on a pedestal or anything.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it felt so comfortable to be with her.
What's next for you? Like, if we're talking to 5 years, where do you see yourself? Right? Okay.
So if you had asked me that at the beginning of my college career, I knew exactly where I was going to be.
Yeah. How's that worked out? Yeah.
God laughed a little bit.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I really don't. I know where I want to be. I mean, where I would like to be is somehow perform being an actor in some way, shape, or form, whether that be in local Boston theaters, whether that be in New York or LA or Georgia or wherever it may be. But ideally, I mean, 10 years down the road, it does take a while, but maybe out there with Dustin Hoffman.
I mean, and that's the thing that people don't understand about acting is it is a profession. It is a craft.
Yep.
It's not just, okay, I'm just going to get up. I can learn these lines and get up. I mean, there's so much to it. There's so much study and learning to I mean, it's almost similar to writing in terms of I can teach anybody structure and grammar. I can't teach writers to use their voice.
Right.
And acting is the same way. Same way in a lot of ways. You have to have that gift to be able to use and to be able to channel and use your life experiences and put that into every different performance. I mean,
I have this thing where I say talent isn't a real thing. So slightly contradictory. I'm more of the sense of like you can learn. There of course are some people who just can't do it, right?
Sure.
But I believe that's a very select few people. I mean, just like anything else, like you were saying,
and there's some it flows from.
Yes.
Right, exactly. So there are some that, yes, it definitely comes easier to them. But I think it's all about skill, and skill is something that you learn and acquire. I mean,
absolutely.
When I started, I was nowhere near, I think, where I am now. And that's not that much further, but it is further. You know what I mean?
You have to have it, but acting, and you have to have that courage to put yourself out there.
Yes, I call it a sliver. So a sliver meaning you don't need much. You don't need to be Meryl Streep when you're 18 years old. Nobody really is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But if you just have that one little bit, I think a really seasoned and experienced director or acting teacher can bring out everything they need to bring out of you. It doesn't take much. So I truly believe anybody could really do it.
Have you considered the dichotomy of your pursuits? You have biology, pharmacology, which is very clinical.
Yes.
And yet you have acting, which is total emotional investment.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I've never really thought about that. I think in some ways acting can be a little more clinical. There are certain ways to do things, and there are certain ways not to do things.
Right.
So I think that I'm grasping onto those parts as I learn more. But yeah, I think they are two completely different things.
Which do you find more difficult, detaching or investing?
Look at you.
I know.
Right?
I interview for a living.
Do you mind rephrasing the question?
Could you use that in the form of a sentence?
Do you find it harder to stay out of the science part of it, not emotionally investing in it, or do you find it harder to work up a connection with your characters? In other words, giving in or standing back? Which do you find harder doing?
Okay. I think that, believe it or not, actually the clinical aspect, or if that's the word that we're going to be using, I think that's the part that might be a little bit more difficult, because sometimes I do just kind of go. You know what I mean? You forget all the things that you've been taught, and you just try to go. And the things you've been taught come out, and you don't even realize that they are. But sometimes, like, I have this issue where I will walk on stage, and if there's a light for me, I don't realize that I'm not lit if I'm standing in the wrong spot, because I'm so focused on connecting and all that stuff. So I would say probably the rules are probably the harder thing for me.
Yeah.
In terms of shout outs, who do you want to give shout outs to in terms of the folks that helped get you here?
I would say theater wise, my professors at UML, there are very few of them. We are a very small program. There's only 3 theater professors. Specifically, one of my professors, Shelley Barish, she is the scenic design faculty there. I mean, she is one of the people that really pushes students, really cares for us to learn. It's hard on us for sure, but it's really trying to teach us professionalism. And a director who is also a part-time teacher at our school but teaches everywhere. Her name is Jenny Israel. I've worked with her 2 times now on a show and in a class that I took with her. She's a Yale graduate. She's very well known. She's the mother of one of the longest running theater companies in Boston. She is someone that I truly find as my spirit animal, I guess. I mean, she really guides me. We really connect very well, and I think she directed Macbeth. I think she has helped me a lot to get to where I am. So, yeah.
In terms of Methuen High,
I, believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy, a Spanish teacher of mine at Methuen High. Her name is Laura Enright. She was just a favorite teacher of mine, but she was super supportive of me doing whatever it is that I wanted to do. I mean, I would tell her I wanted to be a teacher. She was like, great, go for it. This is my advice to you. She really fostered a hardworking person in me, and having a great work ethic, and making sure that you're following exactly what you want to do. When
you find, whatever the subject is, when you find that one teacher, so often the connection you make with that teacher often has nothing to do with the subject. It's a connection in terms of student to teacher, and just seeing something in that student.
Yes.
And to find that is so rare.
Oh yeah.
But then again, I see it all over the place at Methuen High School. I really do. I'm just so impressed by the passion in every corner. Just as a reporter, and now as a parent, you know, just seeing it. It's and listen, huge congratulations to you. I always like to say this just because you took the time to come here. Anything we didn't hit on that you want to get out there?
I don't think so. I would say if anything, if anybody is thinking about pursuing something but is scared, take advice from me and from Oprah. Just go for it. Right. Because if you don't, you're never going to know.
The regrets are so much more, pile on so much more than that fear of making that step.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't worry about what other people think. Whoever they are, they'll come around, or maybe they're not meant to be around you, but yeah.
Nick, huge thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Huge congrats. You represent Methuen so well. We're proud of you, and very thankful for you coming in to talk about this experience, and just wish you all the best here.
Thank you.
Coming forward. Have you hit any sort of senior wall at this point?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was catching up with a friend of mine from high school, and she was like, how's school going? And I was like, wow, I'm done. Like, I really just need to be done by now.
Yeah. Good luck getting through that. And listen,
be careful what you wish for, too.
It ends, seriously. It ends quickly, and then the real world hits you.
I know. Hard, I'm assuming.
Listen, you keep it, like you said, you follow your passion. Whenever it doesn't feel like a job, that's a good day.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. We will take a quick break here. I'm going to change my shirt because I got had a haircut before I came in tonight. I'm going to change my shirt.
Okay, I will too.
Yeah, okay. You change your shirt behind the glass.
Yeah.
Jennifer Canan, the city council chairwoman, will join us. We'll switch it up, talk a little politics, talk charter review. little less exciting than talking to an Oprah Winfrey scholar, but we'll try to make the transition. We'll do it right after the break here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center.
All right, a big shout out to the folks over at AFC Urgent Care. They've been big supporters of us since the beginning as the title sponsor of Ranger Nation Radio, and we are big fans of theirs. AFC Urgent Care, the right care right now. You'll never need an appointment. Got that persistent cough and cold, that cut that needs a few stitches, or need a sports physical and don't want to wait weeks to get into your primary doctor? AFC's streamlined approach helps you be seen quickly and feel better fast. In Methuen, in the Merrimack Street Medical Professionals Building, 380R Merrimack Street. In North Andover as well, in the Burton Grill Plaza. 8 to 8, Monday to Friday. 8 to 5, Saturday and Sunday. Go to afcurgentcare.com for more details.
Well, hello. Welcome back to Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. Tim Wood, I have, as promised, changed my shirt.
Me too.
Here with Lou Blassie. Yeah. And our next guest, now,
as to dress up for Jennifer.
I know, right? Jennifer's always well dressed.
Yeah.
So, as I said in the preview of the show, so we talking to Nick. We're going to talk to Jennifer. Second hour, we're going to address what's happened with the Edwards twins. We have taken the Edwards twins ad down. Appreciate the folks who saw that. We will address that whole issue, and the phone number is up in the comments and in the description of the show, 978-659-0072. Looking to have a civil discussion about it, and looking to hear what you have to say. I certainly have my own thoughts, but we will get to that a little bit later. For right now, thrilled to welcome back to the show Methuen City Council Chairwoman Jennifer Canan.
And I'm glad to be here, and I think I was your first guest.
You were the Bill Murray of Looped In Live. Yeah, absolutely. You were the first guest.
How long ago?
I don't even remember. It seems like
Not
3 years ago.
Was
at
it
this
a year
point.
ago?
Yeah.
I don't really know.
I think it was March. Yeah, it wasn't even a year.
It's just one foot in front of the other, Tim.
See?
Exactly. Survive in advance.
Yeah.
Speaking of survive in advance, you have been working on the charter review as part of the charter review committee. You and a number of Methuen's finest, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And you guys have come to the point where you're ready to make some recommendations for the public.
Right.
Tonight is the first public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
What time is that?
6:30 at the Great Hall.
6:30 at the Great Hall. Okay, and that will be televised as well.
Televised, yes.
Okay. Certainly, hope you'll come in person, but if you can, it will be televised. Let's talk just an overview of what the purpose of this charter review committee. I mean, it kind of says it in the title, but what was the purpose here?
So the purpose is every 10 years, a city's charter should be reviewed. Sometimes maybe some changes depending on the prior 10 years and seeing what is working for cities and towns. There was a prior charter commission elected in 2009. They did quite a bit of work, and because it focused mainly on term limits, it failed. And there was a lot of good changes in that as far as some grammar errors and just overall small changes. The whole charter failed because of that. So now, fast forward to where we are 10 years from that date, almost 10 years, it will be 10 years next year. We decided to take a look at it, and the Attorney General's office is clear as to how these charter commissions and committees are formed. One could be the way it was done in the prior one, an elected group, or if there's not people in the community that really feel, again, that there may be like term limits that they're strong about, then the mayor or board of selectmen or council could appoint a committee to review it and make changes. One thing that this committee that I'm on wants to ensure the public is that any changes to this will ultimately be decided by the voters. It will go on, if it's all done, it will go on this November 19th.
November 19th, yeah.
Yeah, 2019 general election, and the voters will decide whether they agree with the changes. A couple of different things that this group might do versus the other. If there are some controversial issues, such as term length of the mayor, not term limits, but length, certain things like that, we may do a special ballot question so that it doesn't hurt.
We can separate out.
We can separate
parts
out.
of it.
Yeah, and we don't want to do too many because we don't want to confuse the public. So
Sure.
just maybe a couple of big ticket items that the public is concerned about, and we want to hear what the input would be. So we would do maybe a couple of questions, and that way, as you go through the document,
That way the whole
thing
body of the work, it doesn't go
Correct.
away.
Correct.
Sure. Give us some of the highlights. Give us some, you guys have done a lot of work on this, a lot of discussion. You've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. A lot of grammar changes, obviously.
Yes.
That's kind of boring stuff,
Yes.
but stuff that needs to be
Right.
updated. But in terms of the policy stuff that you guys have weeded through, what are some of the as you said, the bigger ticket things that you guys are addressing?
So the bigger ticket items are definitely the term under article. Let's see. I believe it's the mayor, the executive branch.
Yep.
Article 3. We want to see if the public would like the mayor to serve 4-year terms. A lot of times when a new mayor is elected, a year and a half into their term, and usually it's May, they have to pull out papers to get on the ballot again.
Yeah.
They're just learning the job at that point. That would be 4 years, and instead of doing 3 2-year terms, it would be 2 4-year terms, so it'd be 8 years.
Okay.
That, I think, will be a separate question to ask the community if that's what they would like. And we're going to be hearing that through the public hearing. We also talked about city council. Should the council be the same? And there was
You haven't addressed that at this point, right?
we've talked about it.
Or
but
you
there was-
you're not recommending any number.
No, because a lot of the stuff that is in the red line item, and just to let anybody listening know, this red lined item is online on the city website under the Charter Review Commission. Unless it was made, a motion was made and seconded, we did not put it in this.
Okay.
We do have other further discussion. So after the public hearing, we will do what they call a second read, and at that point, we're going to touch on issues like the council and find out, is it something that during these public hearings that the people said, well, why should the mayor and the council both have 4 years?
Yeah.
You might have a mayor who gets a stronghold on the majority or a super majority of the council, and for 4 years that could be, a little bit tough.
Yeah, you could have a discussion almost in terms of a midterm election,
Correct.
like we do on the presidential level.
Exactly. So in that case, if the people say, well, you know what, let's put the chief executive officer as 4 years and then keep the council the 2 years. Now, if the public was a little dismayed as far as the mayor having a stronghold, then they can change up the councilors, at the polls.
Yep. Now, where is it on the city website where folks can see it?
So I would go to
Charter Review under City Council.
City Council
Yep.
Charter Review. Click on that, and then it says right there, Home Rule First Read Charter Reviews and Changes.
So we are actually I'm pulling up the link right now. We'll put it on.
Great.
We'll put it on the comments so folks can follow along, so to speak.
Okay.
So to speak, my term of the day, I guess.
Oh, putting that for lingo bingo?
Yeah, the
Lingo
looped in
bingo.
live. Yeah, looped in live
Yeah.
bingo.
Yep.
And everybody says at the end of the day, just to let you know.
I absolutely. You were the first one that
Thank
was
you.
pegged to
We'll
it.
see, maybe.
But
Maybe.
Sid, it's so funny you say that, because since that kind of became, and you
That's
you
okay.
you played along nicely with it, and since the whole city council bingo became a thing, I just notice it all the time
Yeah.
now. I notice everyone
Everybody
says
says it.
at the end of the day.
And every show here, I have a bingo card for every show. I'm playing it in my head all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a bingo card.
Yeah,
right,
everybody's got that go-to.
Yeah.
So,
You could give prizes out. I mean, if you
oh
want
yeah,
to do that.
hey, Chick-fil-A, we'll talk to them later. By the way, everybody
they were
was
here
like,
yesterday.
were they?
They brought stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
What the heck?
They were
Yeah.
all over town doing that, which was,
Yep.
People, they were in the fire department, police
Yeah,
department.
they were at the fire. Yeah. I mean, Gayla is with she works with the she's their marketing and community relations. We had her on the show earlier. She
Right.
is the PR coordinator for the region for the Kiwanis and helped start the Methuen Kiwanis Club, and she certainly knows how to build community relations
Right.
for sure. You go right to the stomach.
You made
know?
the mistake of having her on the show before there was product.
I know, right?
We had them on the stations here after there was product.
So for those of you, I saw some folks saying, "Why are you not broadcasting live from Chick-fil-A?" Listen, the thought entered my head yesterday. Okay, there was a thought process that we were gonna be there for the 5:30. There's just a line of demarcation for me in terms of chilliness, in terms of wind chill and temperature,
Oh, I see.
where a free meal once a week for a year does not meet my criteria for for a 24-hour camp out, and it definitely pushed over the line yesterday morning.
I wouldn't camp out at Davio's for 24 hours,
Oh, Davio's.
let alone.
Yeah, no, and they had a bunch. They didn't have as many as they typically get in terms of these first 100 campouts. But Luann Santos was there. We got photos, and Rich La Rochelle says he's headed there right now. Maybe he'll call in with an update later.
Well, we're
Anyway.
right down the street. You can bring some stuff in.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on, Rich. You know where we're at. All right. So we were saying, how did we get off on Chick-fil-A?
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Rich is thinking, how do I get sucked into buying them stuff?
Yeah, right. So, in terms of the structure of government, you guys have also talked town manager versus mayor.
Yes. So it was what committee member Nicholson, who's actually a school committee member, she had asked early on, how do we go about discussing this? Not to say that the city wants to go with that, but
Sure.
how do we discuss it? So we had got the Collins Center, who is advising us, and they advised the prior charter commission, and that would be a separate question too to the residents. However, as most of the people who watch your show know, we are in the process of hiring a CAFO, Chief Administrative Financial Officer, which is going to change the landscape of Methuen.
Yeah.
It's going to change the landscape, in my opinion, and a few opinions that I've spoken to people about. They're going to, in essence, be the Chief Financial and Administrative Officer, which will be dealing with contracts, which will be dealing almost as a human resource department head. They will actually now have their own department, which the council will have to create, and it will be an accountant and finance department, and he will be the head of that department. And
Is the thought process that whatever, and I know this has not been worked out yet, is the thought process that perhaps whatever we're going to call what we currently call the city auditor would be under that department?
Well, that's a great question,
Yeah.
because we have a fiscal stability officer now, Sean Cronin. He's the deputy director of the Department of Revenue, and he is suggesting that. The city council has the auditor right now under our authority, and I've talked to a few people who actually took part in writing the charter in 1972, and one thing that they wanted always was the money and the attorney to always sit with 9 members, the council, the people, because we're considered the people's voices.
Yes.
So that was something that group who did our constitution, which is our charter, that was their idea behind that. Some cities and towns have it, not a lot in the Commonwealth, but there are cities and towns out there, probably mainly towns, I would say, that have that form of government, okay? And there are times where things go wrong, and we saw that just recently, okay?
Yes.
And I'm the type of person that you want to learn from the past and make
Absolutely.
sure that you can correct anything that happened. And so there is something to be learned from what happened. There would be discussion on that as to this CAFO having jurisdiction now over the current auditor, which it wouldn't be an auditor because the CAFO will be the auditor.
Sure.
So it would be maybe
Comptroller,
correct,
yeah.
or an accountant,
Sure.
bookkeeper, whatever.
Yeah.
That would be a discussion with the city council. It was told to us as we were doing the home rule petition. We left it alone for now, but we want the CAFO committee, which actually met this morning at 9:00. That will be televised. I believe I believe it was televised. I don't know if it was live though, but eventually it would be on the on-demand schedule. But that would be something that the CAFO can come to the council, explain to us why they feel that he should have that person under their umbrella. But, you know, that person, in essence, is going to manage a lot of the city's finances and administrative duties. So that may, in itself, have an effect on the mayor's duties.
Is there the potential that this town manager versus mayor discussion gets to the ballot? For example, that if we were to vote a town manager type, that CAFO position would evolve into a town manager, or is the thought process to always keep that separate?
I know because of the law that we sent, the home rule petitioner's law, and that CAFO is here, at least until that the $4 million is paid off for 10 years. So I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
I don't think that that would be the thought process. However, when the CAFO is in, the fact of the matter is they are going to be having duties. So let me give you an example.
Yep.
In our charter under section 3-2, executive authority and duties, under section I, the mayor shall negotiate and may execute contracts involving any subject within his or her jurisdiction. Now, come the second read, and the CAFO is now in, that may have to be deleted because
Right.
we want to update this charter. That's not a change currently in the first read because we don't have any knowledge as to what the job description and when this person is hired, and I believe it should be maybe January, February, we're looking at a time date. January might be a little bit too wishful, but the committee's going to meet, and then they're going to, today I think they met to hire a company, consultant firm, to help them go out and search for candidates. You know, I was talking to somebody, I said, what type of candidates actually apply? Former town managers, former mayors, former accountants, city accountants from all over the Commonwealth could be our next CAFO. So that would be something that this charter review committee would look at once it's hired. No need to have this in our charter. That's in means of cleaning this document up.
There was a lot of discussion during the CAFO discussion of who the CAFO should report to or be under. How ultimately did it come to? I mean, obviously I think it was majority vote, but how did it come to? Or maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
How did it come to the CAFO reporting to the mayor?
That was pretty much in the home rule petition because we tried to see if the CAFO, because the auditor was under the council, and it's pretty much the state boilerplate language home rule petition that they gave us. And the reason why we worked on that for about a month is we really felt that the city council didn't have any oversight, or as much oversight as we would like.
Right.
And it's good to have 9 extra sets of eyes looking at
Absolutely.
anything. So they were very, I would have to say the state House Council was very good working with what the council had recommended in section 3, which speaks on the CAFO. All the other sections, like towards the end, speak about if it ever went to a fiscal overseer, and then if it ever went to a complete control board coming in. And so that there we're hoping it never gets to. But
So the state was adamant in terms of keeping it in the structure of reporting to the mayor, but they worked with you a fair amount in terms of making sure there's some oversight,
Correct.
even with the CAFO reporting to the mayor.
Correct, because the CAFO is a administrative department head, day-to-day operations, and the mayor's executive branch is in charge of that. So the city council, and it's in the very beginning of this, the city council legislative body could never overstep and go into the executive branch, and the executive branch can never overstep and act as a legislator. So in essence, when this CAFO position comes in, and all the CAFOs apparently that are in the Commonwealth, they are all answerable to the executive branch. But they allowed us to have a 2/3 vote on anybody that the mayor wants to bring in. We also have, we put in there that we can request, whether in writing or verbally, any reports from this CAFO, and there's a certain, within a reasonable time, he has to report to us. So we added all that stuff in. So I think the council on a whole felt as though that was fair.
I don't want to get too far into CAFO, but there was definitely some. I mean, I went to the first CAFO committee meeting. There was some frustration there. I to the point where I got up and spoke as a resident, right, because there was some communication between the mayor's office and the CAFO committee ahead of that meeting, suggesting a search firm to find the CAFO, and then also suggesting a boilerplate for a job description. And that feels like an overstretch that we're just going down a bad road where we were with the community development board. It seems like the CAFO committee did kind of a course correction there, mm-hmm, and they brought in multiple search firms. Mm-hmm. We don't know the result of that, right, yet, but how do you, as a body, you're constantly questioning and you're working with the executive branch. How in those situations do you monitor in terms of oversteps, overreach, keeping it an independent body?
So I have to say that I am very impressed with the selection of people that are on that committee.
Absolutely.
They're wonderful professionals. There's Zach Blake, who the Secretary of A&F appointed. I find him very independent. There's the 3 members that the city council picked, which Mark Iannello, he is the CFO, not AFO, for the city of Lawrence. Mm-hmm. He has knowledge in helping cities that had a financial issue recover. Yep. So he'll know what type of candidate Methuen should have. Evelyn Tobin, who actually was named as the chairperson of the committee, she is, she gets right down to business, and she's very neutral.
Her experience, I didn't even realize how much experience she has.
Yeah.
I mean, with the YMCA,
she was involved with them for many years. I think at the state level she mentioned.
Yeah.
And Clint Carney was another council choice. He is a adjunct professor at UMass Lowell, mm-hmm, above and beyond some nice financial background, and he's a Methuen resident who wanted to give back. And then the school committee put their business manager, Ian Goslin, so he'll have knowledge on what the school would look at, so he'll ask those pertinent questions as, whoever the candidates they are regarding their school knowledge. And then the mayor's 2 appointees, Dennis DeZoglio, who happens to be the chairperson of the Charter Review Committee, former mayor, and very financially
savvy.
And then Bill Buckley, Community Development Director, again, appointed by the mayor. So I think that this group should be independent. I know you got up, I was sitting there in the audience when you did your speech. And again, they should be asking whether it's myself as the council chairperson, that I can help them in any way with the council clerk's, our office, and if the chief of staff, Paul Fahey, can be of any assistance to them with the mayor's staff, that would be helpful. But I feel that they should be the ones to ask us. Every one of them was put there for a reason, and between them as a collective body, if they feel that they need any assistance for us, that's what we should be there for. Nothing more, nothing less.
Let's take a quick break. We'll get into some more of the guts here. Give you just kind of the background and how to get involved and how to. I mean, this is a transparent process, so it's how for you to get involved in terms of having your impact on the charter review. We'll do that right after the break here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center.
I understand the supernova scene.
Everyone is cashing in on social media, and all marketing roads lead through social media. If you want to make a splash here in the Merrimack Valley, you need to tap in. This is where the new CEM podcast studios come in. Of course, you can spend your time, energy, and money learning how to wrangle technology to make a podcast instead of running your business. Or you can invest in telling everyone in the Merrimack Valley, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, the Seacoast, or everywhere in the world about your great business, product, service, or yourself. The CEM Podcast Studio is a local audio and video studio dedicated to the craft of podcasts. Their studios feature state-of-the-art recording and mixing equipment designed specifically to produce the best audio and video podcasts. Best of all you need to worry about is your show, your business, and your brand. We do the rest. Call 978-686-9966. That's 978-686-9966 to schedule a no-obligation tour of the CEM facilities and meet with a podcast specialist. Or go to CEMpodcast.com to find out more about podcasting services. CEMpodcast.com, your window to the world.
I love talking about my man, Val Davila. It's a dream to own your own business, and Val and Susan Davila made that a reality in February 2013. They started with just 2 insurance carriers, but now Right in Place Insurance for Progressive, Safeco, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock, and Mapfre, just to name a few. Need auto insurance, renters, commercial, or home? Davila and DeFusco prides itself in having lifelong roots in the Merrimack Valley. Put their experience to work for you. Visit them at 225 Broadway or call 978-241-7950 for a free quote, or visit them online at daviladefusco.com.
Back here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. Family is everything. That's why it's right in the name of Methuen Family Pharmacy, where you can get pharmacy services by the Methuen community for the Methuen community. You don't have to be a patient of Methuen Family Health Center to use the pharmacy either. Drop by 147 Pelham Street in Methuen, right off exit 47 on Route 93 near the junction of Route 213, and get your medication from the friendly faces you already see in your neighborhood. Learn more at glfhc.org/pharmacy. Huge thanks to the folks at Methuen Family Health Center for sponsoring the show. If you'd like to, we always need more sponsors to pay for pay the bills to have these discussions. If you'd like to get involved sponsoring, just email me at tim@loopweekly.com. Comment in the comments here, one way or the other. We will get in touch with you and get you involved with the show. A couple other things I just want to say real quick. Our thoughts and prayers to the family of Bill Bryant and the Bryant family. Bill's older brother John passed away from a heart attack over the weekend, I think, and Bill they'll have the wake for him today, and just a phenomenal family here in Methuen, and we our hearts go out to the Bryant family. You know Bill from Ranger Nation Radio and MVC Gridiron Weekly in terms of what we do together. We're co-hosts, but we've become really good friends too, and I just tough situation there. Yeah. So thoughts going out to them. Also, just want to send some happy thoughts up Main Way today. My father Barry went into the hospital late last night, and looks like he's going to have his gallbladder removed today. So just real pain, real pains over the night. So you get up. My dad's 77 at this point, so no surgery is simple. So I think that's where I'm headed right after the show. But love you, Dad, and we will we'll send some positive thoughts up Main Way. So back here with Jennifer Canan, City Council Chairwoman. member of the Charter Review Committee, talking a little bit more about just the changes that are being discussed, the process of the Charter Review Committee, the timeline. So in terms of some other changes that are being discussed at this point, now we mentioned town manager, mayor. Again, that's just it's a means of discussion, right?
Correct.
It's how does that get brought up how does that get brought up at a public hearing, for instance? Do you say is it just a matter of how do you guys feel about town manager versus mayor, or is there actual language that's been mulled over and discussed to get through there?
So with this being online, people can come in and speak about any of the changes, big or little. We are going to probably highlight 3 topics. One of them is going to be term lengths of the mayor. The second one will be manager versus mayor. And the third will also be the mayor as the chairman of the school committee. So those are right now 3 big changes. There are still some, other changes in here which we can discuss too. But so we'll actually, and I don't want to speak for the chairman, Dennis DeZoglio, but he will probably bring those 3 up and say, again, any questions you have, but if you want to talk on some real, items that we feel as a committee that we had a lot of discussion on, we'd like to hear your input there.
Now, did the Charter Review Committee actually vote to bring this town manager versus mayor change to a vote?
No.
So where is that at this point in terms of it being a discussion point?
So it's because of the fact that we want to hear public input.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways, because one of the things is tonight, it is cold, people may not be rushing out at this point. We just want to get it online and let people know that these are some of the discussions. We also discussed in those meetings that we've had since maybe March or April, that we should do a survey as well to get more masses of people. And again, as we are talking about these larger changes, we're thinking ways that we can reach some of the people, through a tax bill, water bill, or possibly a survey on social media, because again, not all of the Methuen residents do go on social media or the city website, so I think we'll take a look at those 4 items and see if we can get some type of gauge in the community. That might now at least get some people out there that may not be watching the meetings or may not go on to the city website. If they see it in their tax bill, if they see it in their water bill, if they see it in your newspaper and other forms of media, that will now at least have the talk for this when we go into the second round. The second round is when the votes are now going to count. That's when we're going to turn around and say, let's get language from the Collins Center. They've done this before, and they would provide us language as to what the questions should say. We don't want it to be misleading or anything. We want it to be pretty standard, cut and dry, mayor, manager, whatever. Same thing with the term lengths. If that's something that we hear, yeah, why not? Let's see what the voters say. Very simple. Out there 4, 2, there will be limits, so there will be either 3 2-year, or even just say, do we give them a choice? Do we say, do you want this, check here, or do you want the 2 4 years, or the 3 2 years, or just a simple question? Excuse me, just a simple question.
I've done that more than once.
Just a simple question as current system is 3 2 years. Do you agree with the 4? Yes or no. So they would formulate those for us.
All of these meetings have been public.
Yes.
Is this public hearing still a forum where folks can bring up new items that they'd want addressed?
We've gone through the entire charter. The entire charter is open for discussion tonight.
Okay. Now, the third item, the big ticket item that you mentioned, the concept of the mayor no longer being the chairperson of the school committee.
Right.
What was the genesis of that? Where did that begin?
Again, school committee member Nicholson, who is also a former superintendent, she has made it perfectly clear that this is not about the current mayor, former mayor, or any of that. She, in her own words, said that she feels that there is sometimes an inherent tension brought on because the mayor is the chief executive officer of the communities.
Yeah.
The superintendent and the school committee are pretty much the go-to people on the school side. If there is, funding or whatever issues, the mayor's always the one, I'm pro-city. She said even the superintendent that she worked, the mayor that she worked for while she was the superintendent, was never favorable to just the city over the schools, but because she was the mayor, people just assumed that.
Absolutely.
So she felt that the mayor should be part of the school committee, that they should have a vote. However, the elected people who we put in, they should have the chair and the vice chair. And that way, them amongst themselves, whoever the voters put in, should actually chair and vice chair the meeting. Now, that was not a unanimous decision on the Charter Commission. I believe, I'd have to look back, but I'm just going to go out and say it was a 3-2 vote. I can't remember if it wasn't 3-2, it was 4-2. The Mayor DiZoglio, who feels that the mayor is the top person in the city, and that would be stripping them of some powers and duties. He just felt that at this point he didn't see there be a huge issue, so it was him and former council Ron Marcian who at this point just voted against it. But
I've been to a lot of, if you've been to a school committee meeting, you know the inherent tension, and you know the issue. And I'll be honest, when I saw what school committee Nicholson brought up, it felt like she was reading my mind, because I actually have said this before, that I do believe that and it's not about Mayor Jajuga, it's about the position in and of itself, that the mayor needs to be a representative with the school committee, but a lot of times because of the chairman title, the mayor, and again, not just Jajuga, historically the mayor tends to I won't say take over the meeting, but kind of steer the agenda. And you want the school committee to be an independent body while the mayor has input, and the mayor serving as that liaison between the school committee and the city council. Right. But I just think that I applaud that move, because I feel like if those elected to the school committee, those who are elected to the school committee, there should be a chairperson from that committee that was elected for that, to the school committee, and is able to steer the agenda and kind of steer the meetings. It doesn't mean, to me, that doesn't diminish the mayor's role.
Right.
I think, I'm assuming you voted.
I voted
for that change.
I voted for the elected officials, the school committee members, to pick amongst themselves. So yes, I voted for the change.
Why did you go that way?
Because of the fact that the people elect them in,
Yeah.
nothing against the mayors. However, I did want to hear what the general public had to
Absolutely.
say. We had 2 school committee members in the audience and a former school committee member, Barbara Grandine, who is actually a school committee member for the vocational school. And Bob Vogler, committee member Vogler, and Vice Chairperson DiZoglio was at this meeting, and they both spoke in favor. However, I want to hear what the public has to say. So as for the first
Vogler and Grandine spoke in favor of making the change?
Vogler and DiZoglio spoke in favor of the change to make their membership chair and vice chair. Barbara Grandine was in the audience with them. I don't believe she spoke at that meeting, but she was for that as well. For
making the change,
Yes.
so that the committee
Yep.
votes it themselves.
Correct.
So I'm confused, because
Right.
I thought DiZoglio was against
No.
it.
DiZoglio's for having the committee members, not the mayor, as the chair.
Okay.
Yes, why you thought he was
I
against
thought
it.
you said he was one of the no votes.
No, I'm talking about Nick DiZoglio. Nick DiZoglio was in the audience.
Gotcha. Got it. Okay. Too many DiZoglios.
Yeah.
Too
Yeah.
many DiZoglios.
So yeah, no, Nick DiZoglio and Bob Vogel, committee members, were in the audience along with Barbara Grondine. They afterwards were thrilled with the vote.
Yeah. It's, you know, and I just, honestly, there's been so many times during the course of the year where I felt bad for the mayor in situations, because whether he had to abstain from situations, from votes, or it's just a very, it's, when you're the center of the discussion as the chairperson, it's a very tough tightrope to walk, and sometimes sometimes there was elevated tension, shall we say, as a result of it. So I'm at least glad it's up for discussion. Now, as you said, the general public may feel completely different about it. You know?
I don't want to go through this whole document,
Yeah.
but there was a time, and it was in the 90s. I know it was in the 90s that it was changed to put the mayor as the chair of the school committee. There used to be a city councilor on the committee, not as the chair, but that city council would bring all the information back to the city council so that we would know what was going on. At some point in the 90s, I mean, it would probably be in here. It could have been 94, I'm not exactly sure. Or it could have been when the mayor form of government came in 1993, that mayor became the chairperson of the city council. I mean, of the school committee.
So I know that you're having a joint meeting of the council and the school committee on Monday.
Yes.
Again, that's open to the public, correct?
Correct, and that's the
at
third
6
one.
p.m.?
That's the third one under my chairpersonship starting in January. Even before we knew about any of the issues that was going on, we had one, I believe it was in March, and then we had another one when I wanted to include them when the whole CAFO thing was
Absolutely.
coming through, because they are part.
Yes.
And they have a say, I believe, and I think it's good to get us together.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. So, you have a mayor's report in as a normal part of the city council meeting. Why not have a school committee report as part of a normal business?
Great idea. Great idea.
I mean, so much of this social media bunk has had to do with just butting heads, and it just all seems to have come down to lack of communication.
I agree.
And if you're not counting on, as you said before, they had a city council that was kind of the liaison, city council member that would come back and report. Now they've got the mayor. Sometimes, there's been some tension in terms of reporting in terms of what's going on. If you just and even with the superintendent at times, the former superintendent, and just in terms of kind of this sense, well, I report to the school committee. I mean, we're all one Methuen, right?
Right. What we were talking about when we were finishing up, because believe it or not, we saved Article 4, which is the school committee, to our very last meeting, because there was, I know Chairman DiZoglio, I'm going to call him former Mayor Dennis, so we don't mix up with Nick DiZoglio. When we first talked about the school committee, he came out with a doozy when he said, should we abolish the school committee?
Oh, yes.
That was back then. That's why we put this all on hold. And then that would be, again, the only city in the whole Commonwealth is the city of Boston. And those counselors are pretty much full-time. And because Boston's so big, they're doing a lot all day. You
want to hear my theory on why he brought this up?
Yes.
So, again, I can't implore you enough. If you haven't read Dennis DiZoglio's book, the politics of or the importance of political capital. I can't think of the name of it. It's about political capital. It's about his time as mayor and just lessons learned and lessons that he can impart. There's a part in it where he, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the book right in front of me, but there's a part in it where he talks about how sometimes he would just bring things up that he may or may not totally believe in just to start a discussion.
Right.
And so reading the book and then seeing what happened there, I'm like, classic DiZoglio. Classic.
But one thing that I want to stress, discussion is good.
Absolutely.
You don't want to stifle discussion. Discussion is good. However, just if you have a difference of opinion with somebody or a difference of an opinion on a topic, no need to attack somebody or say, oh, I'm being attacked because somebody has a difference of opinion. Perfect example, Dennis DiZoglio brought that up. Not one of those committee members, us all, even knew what he was going to say.
Yeah.
Not one of us scolded him and said, what are you bringing this up for? Matter of fact, Sue Nicholson is a former superintendent and current school committee member. Again, she just said that it's something that I would definitely have to go home and process.
I did not see that as an attack on the school committee. I just saw that as, let's have as long as we're going through this entire charter, let's just have a discussion about how other places do it, how we could possibly do it. Does this make any sense? Now, clearly, didn't have much traction.
Nope.
I honestly don't think it was ever meant to have traction, but it was just a point of discussion to just get folks talking. And as you say, and listen, we're learning this right now in this topic that we're going to address a little later in the show. Things can get heated, and nowadays the discussion so often becomes personal, and people go into their bunkers immediately, taking sides of an issue, and because you're not on my side, you're evil, and that's not productive.
Level minds, not frustration.
Civil discourse.
Right. Nobody should be making decisions on a $168 million entity being frustrated. You go in there, somebody says something, you take it in, and then you think of, whatever you have in front of you. If you have the information, you're taking a vote for the city. But if somebody says something and, you get frustrated, that's not a good position to be in when you're making big decisions for the community. So, as you know, I've been doing this, for a few years.
You have been a go-to for me on the charter since I met you and since I started the paper, since I came to town. What has your you obviously, because you're so interested in the charter and you know it inside and out, it wasn't a surprise that you would want to be on the charter review committee. But what have you learned, or what has there been takeaways for you that maybe you weren't even expecting going into this so far?
Well, again, it's a pretty good document. It needs a little cleanup and just, again, changes according to situations that may not have worked out. Again, to look through this whole entire charter and find 3 items that are main big ticket items, again, that have always been talked about, mayor, manager. So that's their term lengths as far as, 4 and 2 years. Like I said, there was at one time lifetime term limits, meaning if you go in now and you serve, you get elected 2, 2, and 2, serve 6 years. That's it for you.
Yeah.
You could have. I started serving in 2008. I forget how old I was then. 22. No, just kidding. So now, if I wanted to serve only 6 years, if I want to come back in 10 years from now, after my kids are all set and everything else, the way the other charter went, you can't. You can't come back and serve. So then they changed it to what they call consecutive term limits. Some people don't like that, and I understand. I completely understand their opinion, which is you serve if you get elected for your 6 years, 2, 2, and 2. You can go on to the school committee if you want. That's some. And then if you want to, come back to that office that you held, whether it was district or at large, you could do that. Then there was no term limits, and that means you stay on till your successor is found. So in other words, Tim Wood runs for East District, Tim Wood stays until somebody in the East District beats you.
And okay, so and you just said it, because it's, to me, I obviously there's this thought that, okay, you're just breeding career politicians, or because they jump back and forth between council and school committee. They have to win an election.
Right.
So, I mean, if you have a problem with it, run against them. I just, that's how democracy works.
I'll be honest with you. When I first got on the council, I served with a West District councilor. She ended up being the chair in 2009, and I was her vice chair. She lost the following election to another councilor in the West District, and he served one term, and then he lost the following election to another councilor. So people speak in the polls.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to keep the community active, that if you don't feel like your elected officials are working for you, then you go to that election poll, and believe me, the power is in the vote, and that's, how I look. And, make no mistake about it. I've made mistakes. I mean, I'm the first one to say I didn't go in here. I went in here hoping to be the voice of the people. Everybody who calls me as far as issues, I mean, the council meeting is a portion of what city councilor does. We are required to go to those 2 meetings a month, and then just one in July and August. But we are getting calls from residents about their trash, about their sidewalk, things that are very important to the average person. Oh my God, my street is not is all right after the winter, all potholes, or my recycling is out there, my trash is out there, my septic, and we work together as a group, whether it's districts and at large, if we want to work together, if it's a big issue, but we do other stuff, and the meeting is a portion of it. And like I said, there's more aspects to just showing up, taking a vote, and not saying yay or nay. It's helping with the general public, showing the public that you care.
If okay, I'm not. You're on the committee. I'm not going to ask you, Lou.
Yes.
Just if we're having a gentleman's bet, so if you had to guess right now,
Yes.
do you see the term links going through for the mayor?
I do. You mean on a vote? On a
vote, if it goes to a ballot in November?
Yes, because I think you can make that case, because the 2-year turnaround puts the mayor in a really difficult position, and we're running an election every 2 years, which means we're running an election every 6 months.
Yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer.
Right.
I think it's a I don't see the downside to doing it in
And
terms
I think,
of, because the real key to this is just as soon as the mayor takes office, he or she has a few months before they have to go right back into campaign mode, and you're not even for the first time you haven't even learned the job yet.
Her policy decisions are always under scrutiny.
Yeah.
By a voting bloc, and your idea of doing a midterm type of situation with the city council so that the people can do a course correction in the middle of a mayor's term is a great idea.
I can't take credit. I mean,
the founders came up with it, but
I like it.
It's a great idea.
I would think, logically, if we're talking about the 4 years, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. The bigger issue for me is, I think, in the city of Methuen, the mayor has too much power. I think the mayor has to be reined in.
As we've been talking about, that's definitely up for review.
Yeah.
And it's definitely whether we talk about town manager versus.
And honestly, as a Massachusetts citizen, seeing what's going on in municipalities around me, I'm a town manager guy right now.
Okay, you're a town manager guy. Mm-hmm. Reading the tea leaves.
Yeah.
Do you think, if that comes to a vote in November, that goes through?
In Methuen, no, because there's still a taste of the last town manager. I think there's
yes.
too much muscle memory there. I think in other cities and towns you could make the case.
I would agree. Although I think that the folks who are adamant about it are very loud.
Yeah.
And once this starts to get some traction, I think a lot of the folks that have been kind of lingering around the edges, seeing if it's going to come to pass, I think those folks start to make the case a little stronger and get us away from that thought
and
of the issues.
I would still be cautious about the town manager's power, and I would still, as Jennifer says, the city council is the voice of the people, and I would have a city council present that would have some balance to that power. But I want a guy making the monetary decisions who isn't beholden to an electorate, because the electorate in municipalities in Massachusetts is skewed.
Yeah.
As we've discussed ad nauseum.
If I'm voting, if I'm just reading the room right now in terms of the city, I would say it's the mayor stays. But again,
yeah,
there's a long time between now and November.
Because that's a big, overwhelming concept.
Yes.
There is. There was one difference as you spoke, because I've heard that too, that we had the manager form of government and it didn't work. I believe at the time that we had the town manager.
Did it not work, or was there a problem?
Well, there was a problem.
Yeah.
So, and quite frankly, in my opinion, there was also a problem just recently, not,
Yeah.
Yes.
So the only difference I think back then, the problem could have been there was no term limits at that time, I believe, for the council. So just as you said, if you get a town manager in and they get a strong vote,
and they get 5, and all they got to do is get 5.
We had that in the last council,
Yeah.
So it's almost. That's why the only thing I said there, Lou, and I agree with town managers as far as, they're the financial officer and admin. A mayor is answerable to the people. So if this CAFO comes in and he's doing all these, like you said, beholden to nobody, and he's doing the finance and administration, and the mayor is there in a different capacity, maybe the
town manager issue was that there wasn't the correct balance between. It was the city council at the time, between the city council and the mayor. I mean, I know Andover has selectmen, which is a whole different concept, but striking that correct balance between the representatives of the people and a CEO type of town manager is important.
It is.
And if you have to prevent that. And unfortunately, in municipalities, the problem is it is too easy to load the city council. We saw it with the last administration. We see it in cities, towns all over the place. Because once a mayor is in for a number of terms, and the term limits are useful in this case too.
Right.
But as we've seen in Methuen, the term limits are affecting the person, but not the group in control. They're just rotating people.
I just hate this concept that no matter what form, I constantly hear it from pundits that the only job description for a town manager or a mayor is to know how to count to 5.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yep.
It's like that's not how it should work.
Right.
In terms of okay, load it. Let's build the consensus and ride roughshod. That's not how it's meant to work.
But that's how it does so often. Here's another thing that's really important, and looking all the towns in the valley here, you cannot run for if we're going to do a mayor, you cannot run for the mayor from the city council. That cannot be allowed. You
can't jump from city council to mayor.
Because all you get is opposition. And Lawrence is a bigger poster child for this than Methuen has been in the past, because the mayor and the city council in Methuen seems to have been highly cooperative.
So the one thing I will say to you there, I do feel that it almost becomes this sort of like victory lap. In terms of well, all right, we've deemed you're the next one up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're Hillary.
It's
next one in line.
Was that brought up at all?
What?
That current city council cannot run for mayor?
Okay, so I'm not a lawyer. But I will tell you a couple things.
Judge Jennifer.
Yeah. I'd be an excellent judge.
Right?
Just let you know.
It's a TV show. I'm just saying, if Jerry Springer gets a judge show, why not Jennifer Cahan?
So what I've learned about the mayor is, believe it or not, the only qualification the mayor has to have is that they have to be, I'm going to say, I believe just a voter, so that means 18 years old. The chief executive officer of the city shall be mayor elected by and from the qualified voters, and any voter in the city shall be eligible to hold office. What we did ask, but we can't, is should they have a special skill set? Should they have financial background, business degree, any type of, but you can't because it's unconstitutional. So I believe in Lou's comment as far as a city manager would probably be the only person because they can have qualifications, they can be hired.
Right.
They don't have to live in the city of Methuen. They can be from anywhere, outside. As far as...
It's the superintendent model.
Yeah, they could, same thing.
Yeah.
As far, I'm going to, not to say, no, I will say that I disagree only because I've been on the council and I ran for mayor and I lost.
Yep.
It was the, first election that I ever lost, and I felt that, nothing against the former mayor. He was the incumbent mayor. It was, never once has an incumbent mayor ever lost a race.
Right.
But I said I'd give it a chance. I'd give it a chance. And I just felt that serving in government, sometimes you have to serve, knowledge, is how government works. I mean, I have great discussions, I'll say it, with Sid Harris, who is a complete advocate for manager form of government.
Absolutely.
He wants it. He wants somebody to be in there who's taking care of a $168 million budget. However, you can have somebody come in and they could be running a wonderful company, Methuen, anywhere. But when you come into a political hornet's nest,
Whole different.
and you try to do, the job that you're probably overqualified to do, and then politics can get in the way, it could fail.
Yep.
I just want to say that one time the city hired an attorney and highly qualified, okay? And the minimum experience was supposed to be 5 years of municipal. And they hired her. I wasn't on the council. It was 2 years that I was off. And totally qualified. But I think, from my opinion only, when I watched the meetings, it was the politics that got her stuck there, when was asked questions. And it's almost like, whoever's sitting in that chair has to have some type of acknowledgement and experience, because you're dealing with 9 different personalities, and you can be almost like a deer in headlights. Mm-hmm. So, as far as the city council, if you have the qualities and the qualifications, I would say, then you should. But if you just, okay, I think my next step is to go here.
Yeah.
Then I would have to agree or keep hitting this.
Well, I think what happens is when a city council decides to run for mayor,
Yeah.
more often than not, their interaction in the current government becomes jaded.
Yeah. Well,
You can't support the mayor if you're running against the mayor. How can you trust someone's judgment when they're intending and running against the mayor? And I'm guessing there are people who can pull it off.
Yeah.
And can take the issues one at a time.
Yeah.
But for the most part, what I've seen here in the Valley, especially, is that when the person is running against the mayor, they oppose the mayor at every turn. And I don't know if that's good for local government. Just they're running a campaign from the point they decide they're running for mayor.
See, what you described as unconstitutional. Is it possible to write a job description for the mayor?
Now that, again, as I said, I wasn't an attorney. I had asked somebody, why isn't there in the charter, at least, again, can we write basic, you don't have to, master's degree or even not, just a bachelor's degree, because, maybe working in another city and town as a, I don't know if I want to say town manager, but
Town planner or
something, something that has financial background, but I don't think the reason why it's not in there was because I don't think you can. I think back when this was a town, a town charter, whatever, anybody that wants to, run and be more so a figurehead is what mayors were all about, because in Lowell they have a city manager.
But we're creating a job
and
description for the CAFO.
It's a town. It's like a town manager.
So why can't we do that for the mayor?
I also don't believe you should run for president from a Senate position either, but for the same reason. And by the way,
for another show, Lou.
I know. It's the same principle.
Yes.
You're here to do a job. Do that job. And then if you want to run for mayor, take some time off and then run for mayor.
Anything else we haven't hit on that you want to get out there?
Before
we give you your parting prize.
Thank you. I just say if you can't make tonight's meeting, our emails are all on the city website. Feel free to email all of us and give us your input. And again, be on the watch for surveys coming out after the new year.
Excellent. Rich LaRochelle, courtesy of Rich LaRochelle, I have a parting gift for you, a Chick-fil-A Deluxe with American.
Oh my God. Thank you, Rich. Thank you.
Huge thank you for coming in to discuss this.
Appreciate it.
Hugely important topic. I hope folks will continue to monitor.
I've been doing
show
this
up at
almost
the
30 years. That so rarely works.
The what?
Asking for food and getting it.
Right?
I've done
I
it
hear
so
the
many
Red Sox
times.
announcers do it all the time, but it's never worked for me. So, hey.
It almost never works. It's great.
Huge thank you for all the work that you do, and specifically with the Charter Review Committee here, and I really appreciate you coming in today.
I see a comment, and of course, as you know, I might want to comment on that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, as you know, everybody's comments, and I think it's Dave O'Neill. He's for the 4-year position and a raise in the position of mayor and no conflicts of interest, if anything. So I do have to touch on that because
no mayor would ever have to be able to vote on anything.
Okay, so
ever.
I'm going to just explain something because I've seen this, quite a bit, and I just want to get it out there. I would be more suspect on somebody that does not get out of their chair and move out of a room when they have a conflict, and I'm going to tell you, it could be a family conflict, it could be a work conflict, it could be a conflict that you're voting on something that's coming into your neighborhood, that is, if, say, you're a city councilor and your neighbor, there's going to be a zoning change, and now you're sitting there, you would have to get up and walk out of the room. If you don't, shame on you. When you have a conflict, as I said earlier, there are 8 members of a council. You don't want to be sitting in a room if you have a conflict. You get up and you walk out of the room, and that's the law. The conflict of interest law wasn't put in there for, residents who are not in government. It is put in there so that if you're in government, you have the knowledge to know to get up and recuse yourself. Now,
let me ask you, if you run for the mayor and you're endorsed by the police union, are you not in conflict in any police union? And you're elected, aren't you in conflict in any police union matter? To cite an example. You
would be, but again, when you have one person in a department, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm going to speak just for myself because a lot of comments that have been, put out there as far as conflict. When you live in a community and your father was born and raised here,
I don't know how you could not. If you've lived in a community for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, I don't know how you could not have conflicts.
I will be honest with you, and I'm going to, before I am, I'm going to ask either one of you, and I hope I don't, if you know the answer, because we've talked. Do you know how many city councilors right now are sitting on the city council that does not have a conflict in the city?
A conflict at all?
Yeah.
0.
There's one.
Who?
Eunice Ziegler. She, as far as I know, unless there was something with zoning that came up in her backyard, whatever. Other than that, there is people that have conflicts. Now, as long as it's okay. I mean, all it's saying is that you shouldn't be voting on a particular issue. That's it. If you can't vote on it, the best thing to do is to remove yourself from there and let the others vote. And then if this person has a conflict, I think the other 7 or 8 can vote on it. One thing I won't do is conflict myself or my family. Now, if you're running for mayor, let's talk about that because I did run for mayor. And I did have a brother who served on the fire department. My father was a former firefighter well before I came on. He was a lieutenant, retired before I even decided what my service to the city could be. My service to the city was going to be to run for city council because I can't be a firefighter or a police officer. Maybe I could. But when I decided to do that, he was already removed. My brother had followed in his footsteps, which I think is noble and wonderful. And if when I was running for mayor, I'll be honest with you, I had the full support of the patrolman union. I had the full support of the superior officers. I had the full support of the fire department, DPW, and I lost the election. Okay, so you can have those unions behind you, but I will tell you what I also had. This election that I just ran, a lot of the members themselves, they can contribute to your account. They know you can't even vote on them. You can't even make a vote on them. So they know that your decisions are going to be based upon the good of the community, not on individuals. I can't vote on the police. I can't vote on the fire. So a lot of good I am to them. But knowing me in the community and knowing how I look at the big issue and make sure, the city is hopefully doing well, I get their support because I do carry a large vote.
I mean, I would back up the point that I have more of an issue with folks that have conflicts that do not recuse themselves. I find that more suspect.
Well, my point was more about defining conflict.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I am going to be fully. I've said this publicly, privately. I'll say it in front of you. I think at this stage of the game in the police contract discussion, and I don't want to put you in harm's way here, but
I
do feel
didn't mean to specify a certain event. It was just the concept of conflict.
But you have,
yeah.
and it's a point that needs to be made. I feel that at this stage of the police contract discussion, if we're talking about what defines a conflict, I feel like you're beyond conflict in this discussion at this point. At the point where the discussion is at, I respect that you and Counselor Lynn Vidler have recused yourselves and gone probably beyond what you needed to do from an ethics perspective. Where it becomes an issue is, I think people feel like you were elected to lead, you should get to lead, and I'm not gonna say ethics be damned,
right?
But that we could negotiate those ethics issues without you having to leave the room.
Well, seeing that we're here, I guess I admire that you left the room on these incidents because you had family members involved, but I didn't particularly feel it was necessary.
It wasn't, and so that is what. Again, as I said earlier, I make mistakes too, and I just don't as a person because again,
you're erring on the side of caution.
I was erring on the side of caution because again, I don't want to give anybody the appearance of a conflict with myself. Right. Okay, and I'll be honest with you. Anybody who knows me,
you are 1 of 9. The mayor is 1 of 1.
I know.
That's the difference.
There is.
Yeah.
So how I actually look at it, and again, I've been born and raised here, and people who know me know I would never put one person in front of the whole city. It's just not worth it for me. In fact, I expect my family, my kids to work harder. My husband has a business. They both started working down there. In fact, now my youngest is there. And I explained to them that they're not the boss's children. They're there to work harder because you have employees that are looking at you, and you don't need to be the one, this is my father's business. That's just not how I was brought up. So when something comes in front of me, if I was the mayor, I actually knew again where my conflicts were. When you're looking at the school department, the superintendent school committee handle the negotiations and the budget. So all the mayor does is look at it, present it to the city council for their vote. So again, you're not looking at the one person. Let's make sure this is lucrative.
But if you have 5 votes, that's not a big deal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now,
it's all about concentration of power.
It is. But how I also believe, and I would have done this, and I actually said it and was torn up about it, because when I tell you, you want to watch a Dirty Mayor's race, why do you think nobody has run since I ran? I was the only one that came out. I was the last person to run against an incumbent mayor. Right. Let them write what they want to write, but I'm going to tell you what my plan would have been, and I think I was insulted on it in an Eagle Tribune article. I had said that, again, and it's funny now because this current mayor has said that when he went to the mayors and managers meeting that they have for new managers, all the ones that are currently in, the ones that don't have term limits, and the newly elected ones go in. They have specifically told the mayors in this recent conference that they shouldn't even be negotiating contracts. I agree. Now rewind back to 2013 when I was running. First of all, I would have gotten outside independent person. There should be nobody from the mayor's office, if there is a conflict, taking on that, because you have to remove any the appearance of impropriety. People don't need it. Yes, of course, if you have a relative on the police department, the fire department, in the treasurer's office, in the assessor's office, okay? Because we're not a huge community. We're 50. That should immediately be taken out, and that's why I'm thrilled about this CAFO coming in.
But it's also common sense. If the city gets sued, the mayor doesn't go into court and defend the city.
Correct.
You get a lawyer to do it.
Correct.
You're going into a union contract negotiation. The lawyer doesn't do it. I mean, the mayor doesn't do it unless he's particularly skilled in union negotiations. You get a union negotiator to negotiate union contracts.
And that's the perfect example. Now, again, as you see this CAFO is going to be somebody who has financial background in union contracts. They're going to have human resource background. That would be an ideal person to be doing this. The mayor, on the other hand, says, okay, guess what? You got $2 million. Go in, figure out how it gets done, but that's my number, right. $2 million. You come back, he might come back and say, oh, they want $2.2 million. Well, you figure that, because that's what negotiating is.
Exactly.
But as a mayor, that shouldn't even be your focus, because how could you know all the accountant, all the law, everything else? You're there to hopefully be the voice of reason. Again, very independent.
How do you know how the cascading works in the contract? You don't.
You don't.
You run into problems.
Yeah.
You don't.
I mean, there have been the problem here is there's been so you have. You have a situation now where conflict of interest is the buzzword right now, because you have this situation where you've got a gigantic conflict in the middle of this police contract situation with the mayor and again,
which would have been bad enough without it.
It would have been bad enough without it, absolutely. And it's no disrespect, because listen, everything I've heard, his son is a phenomenal officer and serves the city well. Yeah. But it creates you talk about just the appearance of impropriety. It creates a stink that becomes I hate to say cancer, but it becomes this just overwhelming thing that overrides the entire discussion. So then I appreciate what you and Lynn did, but I almost feel at this point that you recusing yourselves is working against you.
It was. And so we ended up sending the attorney. I actually called the Ethics Commission, and I just said, listen, we don't know what people are going to say when they come to public participation. We are running these meetings, and as long as there's no deliberation and vote, and they said, ask your city solicitor, and I did, and I made Richard send us a opinion in writing, and he said, yeah, if you can be in discussions as long as it's not an agenda item and they're not deliberating and voting, you can stay in the room. I do want to make a clarification, because I admire Ryan Hamilton a lot. I know back when he was working for Laurie Trahan, there may have been, like, again, that would have been his conflict. I don't know if he currently has a conflict, a family member or anything, so I don't want to give the appearance that he has a definite family member working for the city. So that was where my
your
number,
count.
Yeah, my count was.
Absolutely.
All right.
So yeah, we went there, and I appreciate you going there.
Thank you.
But I do. I would, when you see that in caps in the comments section, it's something that you face daily now.
Daily.
In a town the size of Methuen, how do you put in a mayor who has no conflicts? Someone like your family has been in Methuen a long time. Yeah. You're going to have people in the school department. You're going to have people in the fire department. You're going to have people in the police department.
So and
it's just. But
then it goes towards this steamroll of support for outsider. Outsider. That becomes the new battle cry.
So again.
But an outsider has to collate support, and that support turns into conflict.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But here's the funny thing. The law, which in my opinion, there has to be a happy medium, because, again, the law says family. I'd be more suspect on somebody taking care of friends and business partners and this one and that one.
Right.
So my question is, you're looking for an ethical, all-around person who does the right thing.
Yeah.
Again, one family member who, you know, in a department, and again, I love the comment for somebody who wants to be mayor, and I'm going to say it because that's how I am. Cesspool, that's somebody that wants to be mayor in the city of Methuen? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. I mean, it's online, and you're saying that. We want Methuen to be a better place.
So it wraps around again. Conflict is inevitable in a small municipality.
Right.
So what you need to do is work on balance of power, where
Balance of
conflict
power.
doesn't become a major issue.
Yeah.
So concentration of power, balance of power is the key here.
We've got a lot of problems to deal with, but you can do that in a way that, I mean, there's far more good than bad in the city,
Right.
and
It is.
you can solve those problems in a way that addresses the past, addresses the future, but does it respectfully and does it in a way where we're not throwing around these like we're a cesspool or we're I just like. Listen, there's some bad stuff going on. There's no doubt about
though.
it, but it is
Pull up your
politics.
big boy pants.
Right.
And
Oh,
there
yeah.
are always going to be people out
Right.
there who
Yep.
feel that way.
Right.
Yeah. Just got to keep
Add
working.
it to the bingo card.
Right. Right. It's politics.
Jennifer Cadan, huge appreciation for you
Thank
coming in.
you.
Happy holidays to you,
Thank you. Same to you and
happy
your
Chick-fil-A
viewers.
Day to
oh
you.
my gosh, that was great. Thank you, Rich, again.
All right. So the second hour has morphed into the third hour, but again, important discussions all around. Just a busy day.
Right.
It's turned into a busy day, and it always seems to happen. Wednesday, all heck breaks loose.
So just our poll on the show today for extending the mayor's term to 4 years, 60% in favor.
60%.
Yep.
It's wonderful to know.
A
So
short-
thank
a
you
short
for that.
little look.
Well, that's
Nice.
good. I want to say that tonight at the meeting. I'm just going to say there was a poll, and it was 60% for the term limits to be the mayor.
There
I
you
don't
go.
have numbers, so
That's
be
okay.
careful.
No,
but
that's all right.
Yes.
No, just an
that was-
unofficial.
that was
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
All right, we'll take
right.
a quick break. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take
Thank
a
you,
quick
Will.
break. We'll address the Edwards twins controversy next here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center.
Everyone is cashing in on social media, and all marketing roads lead through social media. If you want to make a splash here in the Merrimack Valley, you need to tap in. This is where the new CEM podcast studios come in. Of course, you can spend your time, energy, and money learning how to wrangle technology to make a podcast instead of running your business. Or you can invest in telling everyone in the Merrimack Valley, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, the Seacoast, or everywhere in the world about your great business, product, service, or yourself. The CEM Podcast Studio is a local audio and video studio dedicated to the craft of podcasts. Their studios feature state-of-the-art recording and mixing equipment designed specifically to produce the best audio and video podcast. Best of all you need to worry about is your show, your business, and your brand. We do the rest. Call 978-686-9966. That's 978-686-9966 to schedule a no-obligation tour of the CEM facilities and meet with a podcast specialist. Or go to CEMpodcast.com to find out more about podcasting services. CEMpodcast.com, your window to the world.
I love talking about my man, Val Davila. It's a dream to own your own business, and Val and Susan Davila made that a reality in February 2013. They started with just 2 insurance carriers, but now Right in Place Insurance for Progressive, Safeco, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock, and Mapfre, just to name a few. Need auto insurance, renters, commercial, or home? Davila and DeFusco prides itself in having lifelong roots in the Merrimack Valley. Put their experience to work for you. Visit them at 225 Broadway or call 978-241-7950 for a free quote, or visit them online at daviladefusco.com.
You better speak up now if you want your peace. You better speak up now. It won't mean a thing later. Yesterday's news is
But they move very quickly. All right, we're digging into our Chick-fil-A here. The break wasn't long enough.
Yeah, I wasn't planning ahead. Like I said, it never works, so I
No, it doesn't.
wasn't planning ahead.
Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. Tim Wood, listen, 978-659-0072 is the number to call if you want to get involved in this next topic. Rich La Rochelle joins us now, the deliverer of Chick-fil-A. Before we jump headlong into this, set the scene.
Okay.
Set the scene in terms of Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A is now packed like crazy. There's more people going to Chick-fil-A than Target.
Yeah?
Hard to find a parking spot, and it wasn't even really lunchtime yet.
Yeah.
Lunchtime kind of between 12 and 1 really starts for a lot of people, but it was packed with military members, FedEx, everybody was there, and they're giving out gift cards as well if you guys head down over there for free breakfast.
They know how to do an opening. They know how to do an opening. They know how to do an opening. They know how to get involved in the community. I've been a huge fan of Chick-fil-A for a long time. As I've said, I was a general manager of a baseball team, a minor league baseball team down in Savannah, Georgia, the Savannah Sand Gnats, and we one of our key sponsors was Chick-fil-A, and they had the billboard and everything, but the best part of it is that they were the official chicken sandwich of the concession stand. And
Nice.
I would say probably about 20 of these
I'm
pounds.
going to Savannah in about a month.
Are you
give me
really?
a good restaurant
Oh,
recommendation?
Chick-fil-A.
we shall talk.
All right.
We shall talk.
Yeah.
I
Eat
don't know
more
about
chicken.
Lady and Sons anymore. We'll see. We'll talk.
All
We'll
right.
talk.
Yeah.
So, a little crowded.
Quite a bit
Yeah.
crowded. However, there is an option. They have the Chick-fil-A app. You can go ahead and sign in and then go ahead and order.
Or order
and
ahead of
walk
time.
right up, and they'll have it ready. You don't have to stand and wait in the line.
There's
Then they
your
have
plan.
the drive-through with two cars going, two lanes.
Yeah.
And that was fully packed,
I
and
bet.
that was wrapped around.
Yeah.
So
It's like a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through in the morning, probably. It's and
Oh,
it's,
it was worse.
Yeah. It's I mean, listen, it's the new thing in town. But beyond that, it's a unique fast food chain and how they do business and how they care, how they get involved in the community, and listen, just a new choice along that stretch. You can only have. Well, some people don't do the fast food at all, but for those who do, it's like you got Wendy's, you got McDonald's, you got Burger King, and then what? So
Yeah.
now we got.
And then Chinese food everywhere.
There you go. There you go. Now you got another option. So, all right, let's get into this. So, as you know, as folks have commented, we were one of the folks who my company Over Media. We advertised the Edwards twins on in the paper, on the website, and on our shows. We had an agreement with Methuen Public Schools for that, with the band association, a marketing agreement. But beyond that, I was a huge fan of what they did last year. What the Edwards twins, Eddie and Anthony Edwards, the show that they put on last year. I think it was October. It was a fundraiser like this one was for the band to help fund their trip to Disney World to perform and learn down there, not just to meet Mickey. And so part of the Edwards Twins show, and it was not part of last year's show. It was not part of the marketing. Initially I thought it was. There
was some.
You saw some of them
So-
with the
some of
full
the-
array?
Yep.
Okay, because I thought we did it in our paper last year, and when I went back, it was just Streisand, Bocelli, Billy Joel, and I believe Pavarotti. So, this year, and they did not, to my, and again, I believe Nick DiZoglio is going to call in here, and 978-659-0072 is the number to call if you want to join the discussion. I believe
I typoed the poll too, and I'm not going to fix it because there are a couple votes up there.
it's all good.
It's my fault.
I think that this year our ads, most of the ads had that full array of performers where they talk about two brothers, 100 stars. Part of that advertising was Ray Charles, was Stevie Wonder, was Lionel Richie. So that's where the controversy came in here, folks. The Edwards twins have, for 35 years, they've had a show, and they do impersonations of performers in tribute to those performers. And you had some complaints, some that this equates to blackface. That
was the source of the complaint? The ads?
Yes.
Okay.
The ads and the show.
Yeah.
And the thought process that they would perform these characters in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the ads
brought it to people's attention.
You know, there's so many little things to unpack here in terms of facets to the story. Why didn't it come up last year? Did they just get lucky that it didn't come up last year? Has the culture changed that much in a year? I mean, with the whole Megyn Kelly situation, with her being fired, that it definitely became a talked about issue again. There is a question of intent versus impact. For those who are not people of color, you have no ability to judge or I hate to say this to you, to have an opinion on how people of color, how minorities should feel when they see blackface. It is something that it goes back centuries, goes back into family histories, pollutes family histories for generations. And the mere sight of a white person in black makeup is offensive. Now, I have argued to those who have voiced concerns. You know, we really started talking about this last night because what has happened is the show was canceled by Methuen Public Schools. The show was sponsored by Methuen Public Schools and by the band, but it was funded with school money, and being performed in a school venue. Interim Superintendent Brandy Kwong decided, with council, to cancel the performance due to a contractual dispute. Now, that contractual dispute, as it turns out, had to do with the Edwards twins signing a non-disparagement agreement in terms of talking negatively about being asked to take these characters out of their show. And at the end of the discussion, the Edwards twins opted. They did not want to sign that agreement. They did not want to be quiet about being asked to take these characters out of the show. They do not see it as racist. They see it as a tribute. They make the point that they've had the performers themselves sign off and endorse the impersonations. They have pictures with Stevie Wonder. They have pictures with Ray Charles, pictures with Lionel Richie of them and endorsing the act.
So wait, they were going to put aside those character impersonations for the show.
Yes.
But the disagreement came in whether they had to be quiet about it.
The disagreement came in two things. Mm-hmm. It came in officially signing a contract saying you would not have those characters in the show. They just wanted to be an agreement. They did not want to set precedent in terms of signing a contract, taking those characters out of their repertoire.
Okay.
And then also, now they
That's a problem. The other isn't a problem. But
now,
that's a problem.
what's the problem?
I don't understand them drawing a line in the sand. It's not, if they weren't going to perform the characters in that particular performance, I don't understand why they would have an objection to signing a contract saying they weren't going to perform those characters in a performance. Asking them to be quiet about it is ridiculous.
Is ridiculous on the school's part?
Yeah, limiting their ability to respond is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the whole controversy is ridiculous. But
I mean, I would say that the school is not out of bounds in asking for a non-disparagement agreement. Whether because you don't want to, the school didn't want to start a discussion about blackface.
well, who started the discussion about it? The school did.
No, well then really the discussion became public
Yeah.
when the Edwards twins
understand.
said why the show wasn't going on. Now there had already
So they
been
make the
there had
case-
already been commenters online that had hinted at why the show was being canceled.
So they make the case that they're doing it out of respect, and they have tacit approval from the characters that they're impersonating, and everyone goes on with their lives. What's the issue?
The issue is if it's being put on and endorsed by the school district, if you have residents and parents, a part of the school district that have a problem with it, the district
no.
has to listen.
Oh no, that's fine, and it seemed to have all worked out. They asked them not to perform the impersonations. They said we wouldn't perform the impersonations. Controversy's over, isn't it?
Well, unless they're signing a contract saying that they're not going to do it, they couldn't be sure of it.
Right, and
And-
I think that's a reasonable ask.
Yeah.
On the school departments, the contract, signing a contract saying they wouldn't perform those characters is a reasonable ask. They
Now-
should have signed the contract.
They're saying, and they're saying, the Edwards twins are saying, and they said on their Facebook page that they responded to this. They're saying that it had more to do with this non-disparagement agreement.
Right.
I don't think so. I think it had more to do with because now
Well, that's
they were
silliness.
also being
Yeah.
in that non-disparagement agreement. Part of that non-disparagement agreement was you're going to return. If you're going to keep our deposit, you're going to sign a non-disparagement agreement. That was the crux. Is if you're going to keep thousands of dollars for a deposit, you're going to sign a non-disparagement agreement. They in turn said, we're not signing the non-disparagement agreement. We're not signing the NDA. We'll give you your full deposit back, and we're going to talk all we want to about it. So
No, was this
I
about
agree.
not talking bad about the show? Also, was that part
By
of
the
that
way,
agreement?
Nick is here.
Oh, he is?
Yep.
Nick DeZoglio? How are you?
Hey guys, how are you?
What's going on, Nick?
Nick is vice chair of the Methuen School Committee, and I would imagine has something to say on the topic.
One of many Bizaglios, I guess, in the city. You got confused earlier.
Yes, I did. So, Nick,
You know,
what is? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to cover some of the stuff that you guys have said. I bought tickets to the show. I mean, I think many
I bought
of
tickets,
the
or-
officials
yeah.
did buy tickets to the show. I saw the show last year. I think I mentioned to you last night, Tim, that I don't recall ever seeing any marketing materials last year that were similar to this year's, and I'm pretty sure that's still the case. I don't recall having the situation last year, any of the performers being out of tune or out of whack, or in a blackface manner. Nor do I think that the show last year was school appropriate either. I mean, it is a risque show in the first place with some of the dancing and some of the modeling that they do. But the bottom line here is that I don't think there was an NDA or trying to keep anyone quiet being signed. What was happening is there was no set list confirmed nor approved by the school department. We had a contract. They said that they were going to have performers for a holiday show. In that holiday show, there was 3 performers that they were going to impersonate that had black face. That got wind to a few families. Few families approached, and a few families approached, and then multiple families approached about the situation. The superintendent's intention, which again, the school committee had no vote or say over this. This was completely a school department decision, and one that, I see both ends of the story. But at the end of the day, I'm in complete agreement. In complete agreement with the superintendent if this is the best direction for the school department. Now, continuing on what I was saying, the administration, along with the Performing Arts Department, which, by the way, the Performing Arts Department is the one that's putting on the show. The band is reaping the scholarship from it originally. It was a band fundraiser. They reached out. The twins responded negatively from the response that I had, that they were not in agreement to this. They had a few more conversations, and this was the week before Thanksgiving. So this was 2 weeks ago. This started happening, this conversation. And then going into last week, the superintendent requested a contract to be signed that they would agree to not doing any impersonations of anyone of color. Based off of that, they ignored any other communication from Monday of this week to the deadline that we provided them of Wednesday. So we give ample notice to both them and to the people that purchased tickets. It wasn't until Wednesday we got a confirmation that it was canceled. They never responded that they were willing to, in good faith, give us their word on not putting those performers on, nor did they sign the contract. Then they posted that notice on Facebook, which personally I think it was to cover them. And again, I enjoyed the show last year. They are performers. It's a performance. I see them performing at places across the state and across the country. Their job is to entertain. I think for a school department to put on a show like this, where we have students and families in the community that were greatly disturbed by this, I mean, we have to answer to it. And again, questions could have come out about other topics within the show, which then we would have had to respond to. We're a public school system. We're using public school money to put on a performance, which then we would be fundraising for to give back to student scholarships. No money was lost in any of this, nor was it gained. The Edwards twins did provide the full refund, which is very generous. They didn't have to do that. But I personally think they did it so they could cover themselves and stepping up for their show. To continue quickly, I don't think they spent thousands of dollars to change 3 characters out.
No, I think that's a bunch of bunk. I completely agree with you. They say in part of their statement and part of how they responded to the Eagle Tribune, they say that they had to spend thousands of dollars to redo costumes. I think that's a joke. They are on the road for weeks at a time. They advertise the show as two brothers, 100 stars. They have all the costumes with them. They're ready to do whatever costumes need to be done at any time. So the idea that they're out any money on this is a big pile of poo.
And to be honest with you, we weren't trying to make a scene of this. We wanted it to be a contractual issue, and we wanted to make the families that had the concern, I guess you could say protect them in a way. But, we are at a point right now where they publicly made some points. And, it's a catch-22. If we went forward with the show and they ended up doing something like this, where would the families of those others that voiced their concern feel right at this point? We're a public school system. We're not a private entity. We're not a Salvatore's. We're not a Loop Weekly. If you guys wanted to put on a show, we don't use our money for public schools. excuse me, you don't use your money for public schools. We do. And this was a sponsored event by the schools.
Yeah, I mean, I thought to myself at one point during this debate, like, could we step in and be the sponsor so the schools don't have to be the sponsor, so this doesn't have to be a dilemma? But I mean,
And then you laid down for 5 minutes and
it
went away.
Yeah, then it went away. Yeah. Yeah. Why do I? I mean, listen, it's there's number of facets to. There's I honestly I don't think anybody cares as much about the contractual issues here. I think really now that this has all come out, I think it's a discussion about what is blackface and is it ever appropriate, and should the Edwards twins even continue doing these characters in their show? I mean, that's the type of discussion that is now taking place.
Well, it's kind of, and I'm using it as an example. That's kind of like asking Kenny Chesney to play his Boston song in New York. You know, he wouldn't do that to his audience. If the twins really wanted to be a partner here, they would have helped the Methuen public school system and the dilemma that not a dilemma on the controversy now that we've created here by them to make all families feel welcome to this. They did not want to do that.
Listen,
and they lost business by doing that. We were a partner with them last year. They could have been business for us in a long time with them with the scholarship, but instead of catering, or I'll say catering, appeasing the customer, the client, they did not want to do that, and in that case, they lost the business for the future.
If there's a constituency in the city that is, I think, overly sensitive and offended by this, and they want to voice it to the school department, and the school department decides they want to honor that, I have no problem with any of that. That's fine. The bigger concept that you brought up, though, let me ask you this. Has Methuen ever performed the play Rent?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. In Andover they did, when my daughter was in production over there. And there are some portrayals of gay people in Rent by people who aren't gay that, play up in a similar manner to...
I mean, listen...
You make a good point.
A similar manner to Blackface.
These guys perform...
But
these guys...
you could just make the same point for half their other acts that they do, too.
I mean, they do drag. They represent lesbians in the shows.
Any Italian singers? Would they offend my people?
Would they offend the Italian? Yeah,
Yeah, actually, yes.
So I think what's being said here, though, is that is not on par with blackface. That is not on par with.
So you're making a distinction between the two.
I know.
Well,
I'm saying that.
The definition. Yeah, but the definition of blackface is a non-white performer putting on, a dark skin. And in the performing arts world, not just putting on. Portraying an African
American in a disparaging light. That's really the crux of blackface.
That,
no.
Okay.
But so that's the issue here, is putting that makeup on at all even if you're doing it in tribute.
I understand. I think we're sophisticated enough to understand the difference. Or I hope we're sophisticated enough to understand the difference.
I think it's really hard to go against what they're doing when you have the actual stars themselves say, wow, that was good. We endorse this because it's really good. And that's hard. But to me, I've always saw blackface as inappropriate. To just me personally. I've been to a lot of places. I've been around the world. And I've seen a lot of things, and some things I always just thought wasn't right. But then after talking to a lot of people and then going ahead and watching a video or two of things that they've done, they do it in good taste and not in jest necessarily.
No.
So that's, it's really hard for me because I do see both sides here, and I do
of course.
agree with the school.
If you're doing Stevie Wonder, and you're a normal sighted person, does the blind community have an issue with I mean, there's all sorts of these issues that can come up, but so listen. In terms of the show,
Think of it this way. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And because Sid Harris is bringing up white chicks. I'm not going to go down a long media and everything like that, but that it goes down as one of the 50th. Google it if you have to. It goes down as one of the 50th racist movies in the United States. Okay. And you could go into talking about again transgender and that in media and in the movies. We're a public school system, folks. If one family or multiple families voice their opinion about something, we have to have that conversation. And that conversation led to us trying to negotiate with a performer or performers.
I don't think you guys are out of line.
Did not want a time a day. Guys, the main concern is they said that they contacted us and had a nice conversation with us, and they said, yeah, we have our word. No, they didn't. We went almost 72 hours without hearing from them, and we had to cancel the show.
Oh, understandable. Absolutely understandable.
I would be surprised if this is the first time they've heard this. I'm really
of
kind of
course.
surprised at this reaction on their part, because I'm guessing this is a cycle they've gone through before, because this isn't the only place this is going to come up.
I mean,
so and by the way, I want to make one other point. They have pictures on their website of them with various stars. Now, one of them happens to be Lionel Richie. That does not necessarily, but they're not in blackface standing next to Lionel Richie. That doesn't necessarily mean an endorsement. So we're saying that these and they have a picture with Stevie Wonder. That's not we can't jump to saying that there's an endorsement. There's nowhere on this site where there's a clear endorsement from Lionel Richie.
Well, is Lionel Richie holding a picture of them in blackface though?
It's a good question.
All, I don't know.
He is actually. So I guess that would imply an endorsement, but
I don't know why they have to perform in blackface for one thing. And I understand. And where's the line here? If they do Stevie Wonder, do they dreadlock wigs?
Oh yeah, no, they do it. Yeah, absolutely. When they do Cher, they get all shared out.
With the
when they do Elton John, they get all
If they did Stevie Wonder without the blackface and everything else, would it be an acceptable performance?
To those, I would have to say, to those with the problem, yes, that would be acceptable.
Yeah. See, so now it gets a little. The objection gets a little iffy. And listen, again, in this particular case, with this performance and what the school department did, everybody's in line. It's not unreasonable to ask them not to perform African American characters. I understand all the implications here. You're trying to get at Tim to the bigger issue of performing in blackface.
Yes, and I mean that's really where the conversation has gone now.
And you kind of disarmed me at the beginning saying I'm white, I can't have an opinion on it. But my opinion on it is that
I'm not saying you can't have an opinion on it. I'm just saying that we can't discard just out of hand
I understand.
the other side's view on this.
But for me, it would come down to the intent of the performance. In other words, someone comes out on stage in blackface and starts disparaging African Americans, that's a problem. They come out and it's a fairly respectful performance. Again, I'll go back to the rent issue.
So there
were some rather flamboyant performances of gay people in Rent, and high school students were doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw the show?
Yeah.
And what did it feel? Did it feel out of line?
I was not out of line, but I was surprised.
Yeah,
that they went that far.
I was surprised that they took it on. I wasn't bothered by it, and I didn't think they were out of line.
Other divide.
But I think gay. I understand. I would comment different. I mean, it's a public school. Again, it's a racy show to put on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're in a progressive world where we're accepting of this topic or these topics. fixating an African American is not a topic that I think the United States is fully on board for. So, two different worlds, very, very different topics. Very different topics, because the history of blackface stays all the way back in the early modern of performing arts, not allowing African Americans to perform in the arts. And that, I think, is a bigger picture here, folks, than just racism in America or racism or allowing blackface performers at your school. And it is, in the performing arts world, this is a topic that is very close to the heart. And I know that because I went to school for a minor in performing arts. And I've done performing arts for years. And coming back into Methuen Public Schools,
Are there any videos?
Huh?
Are there any videos? I want to see these. The performing arts videos.
You doing plays.
Oh, yeah, I got some videos. And I was in Methuen Performing Arts, and I brought it back to Methuen. I was a big piece of that 4 years ago, bringing the arts back to Methuen, and we have a great program now today for it.
So, can I ask what's wrong with whataboutism, by the way?
What about what?
Diana Cortez.
There's a comment in there. Here comes the whataboutism.
What about this? It's the kind of the distracting.
That's called context.
Yeah. Well, is it?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Because you know, the whataboutism I see on Fox News is just look over here.
They only do it on Fox News.
They do it on all the
not at all. I'm just
stations.
saying of course they do. Of course they do.
And a lot of the comments that I've seen on Facebook and the votes and a lot. And again, I know you do your polls, and actually it's very close, the polls. Watching like
it's 60-40 no. I mean, and honestly, it's
40 votes
closer,
off.
it's getting closer to being 50-50.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's 315 votes, and we've got 60-40 no right now.
A lot of the comments that I have seen, though, are from the supporter base of the Twins, because the Twins posted that, and a lot of that's spilling over into other places in social media. Of course, if Kenny Chesney canceled the show because Robert Kraft didn't like his music, I would be fighting the same thing for my fan.
Really?
As a fan. Just watch out for country there, buddy.
No, I've gone to Kenny Chesney's show. I was
Kenny
front
too,
row for
yeah.
Tim McGraw. I mean,
What I'm
I love
getting at
country
is-
music, but because they canceled the show, you
Nick-
go and fight.
Let me go back to the point.
You have supporters. The Twins have supporters, and that's what they did. They went to their supporter base, told everyone, come on, do you actually think they had so many inquiries?
But let me...
I know for a fact that right now
No, I
the
don't
calls
think
that
so.
have happened at the superintendent's office so far has been 2 emails and 0 phone calls.
And that's
all
what I thought.
all we've asked is, if you have a problem or have a question, please reach out to the superintendent. Tim, you know, because you've talked to her twice today or texted with her today.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Absolutely.
Okay? So she's very responsive.
How do you know
to your
that?
call. I know everything.
You know everything. Jeez.
She's got cameras
Just
everywhere.
to be clear, I'm not supporting the Twins here.
No.
I think it's stupid for them to perform in blackface.
Same here.
In 2018, I just think it's asking for more trouble than it's worth. The school department did exactly what they should do, and they have a right to make those decisions and do everything they think. I'm just asking people to rethink the entire blackface offense.
I'm pretty sure you voted no on your poll there, pal.
I haven't voted yet.
I did. I voted no.
Yeah.
I voted no. And there's a
No,
different
to be
reason
honest
for
with
that.
you, I would have done exactly what you did. In all these instances, I don't have a problem with
I don't think
anything
the school did anything wrong.
See, another issue that I have here now. Okay, we have this phenomenal auditorium that collects dust way too often.
Yeah.
Does this impede us in the future from getting those kind of shows into the auditorium?
Shows that perform in blackface?
I don't even know. I'm not even saying blackface, but because if the performing arts support the Edwards twins here and boycott. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
It's not
That's
boycotting. No. Let's rephrase that. It wasn't boycotting the Edwards twins. We asked them.
I know. What I was
and they
saying.
did not want to partner with us. That's the.
I wasn't
the point.
saying you're boycotting them,
They're
Nick. I'm
boycotting
saying
you.
that all of a sudden you have all these entertainers.
The answer to your question, Tim, is
boycotting with
you've
the
opened the
Edwards
door,
twins.
counselor. In other words, there are a number of problems that could rise to this level of quote-unquote offense.
Well, no, I disagree with that, because the performing arts department doesn't represent every show that goes into that auditorium, nor does the Methuen Public Schools. We rent that out all the time. Like I said, if you, Tim, put on that show yesterday, put on that show, Methuen Public Schools is not funding it. It's not supporting it.
Yeah, I'm on the hook.
Yep.
You rented out the facility. Same thing is with the Nutcracker. We have a ton of Nutcracker performances out there that go into that auditorium, and they publicize that they're going to be at the Methuen High School auditorium for Nicholson Auditorium on this and this date. Methuen Public School just rented it out. We are not backing any of those. So if Jeff Dunham wanted to rent out our auditorium and have a show
That would
there,
be awesome.
sure.
So
Just be careful what play you pick.
if
next.
Louis
The
C.K.
performance art.
wanted to come perform, I'm sorry, I won't go there.
No,
but I mean,
I saw him.
there is a distinction with the school putting it
Yeah,
on as opposed
absolutely.
to renting out the hall. There's a clear distinction there. And again, I have no problem with what the school did here. I would have done the same thing.
And one more thing I will say is the Edwards twins said that in their 35 years they've never had anything like this come up.
I doubt that.
It's
impossible.
already proven that they had something like this come up in Boston. It happened locally. I mean, it's already come up. They've had to address this, and they're gonna. I hate to tell you, they're gonna have to address it again.
You can't perform in blackface in America in 2018 and not get blowback. You can't. It's impossible that this is the first time they've heard it.
No matter how much I can tell, and I will, I have. Listen, I have attested to this. I'm not just reading copy when I talk about this show. That was the best show that my family, the best night out my family had all of last year was that show. It was a great show. They're phenomenal performers.
Did they do any of those characters?
No, they didn't.
No, I do not recall blackface
No,
last year.
they didn't.
I do not recall anything like that of the sort, nor any marketing materials that had it.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in time, like I said, we did not receive a set list. We received the marketing materials. Multiple families came out to ask. We provided that information back to the twins. They said, these are the performers that we're bringing in. We asked them to exclude them and just replace them with 3 other people. They huffed and puffed, and then for 3 days didn't respond to our emails or calls.
Yep.
So for them to go and play a victim, they're just covering themselves and making themselves look like they're the victims here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a public school system. We're the client. We're the customer here. You could have had multiple years of business with us, and this is how you treated us. And again, the population was to fund additional scholarship money for students. They could have at least put that in their heart, and instead they try to play with the heartstrings with their statement. And I'm sorry. I'm going to defend the school system based off of those facts that they did not reach back out to us.
No, they're not victims here, and your response was extremely reasonable.
And I'm not calling them a racist either. I'm not calling anyone racist, or if this is a racial issue. This was them clearly not working with their client, and that's how I'm going to position this right now. It's they did not want to respond to us. They wanted their show to be the way that they wanted to be. They didn't want to provide any, any assurances that they would change the lineup. And Dr. Kwong did the right thing in her heart, and I think many of the people that, again, brought these queries to her attention will understand that.
Well, let's see. Mulan is off the performing list for the Performing Arts Department. Lion King is off the performance list for the
Why is that?
department. We're appropriating culture, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
No.
No?
You need the complaints. When the complaints
let me
come
ask
in.
you, forget that part of the comment. Forget whether we actually are or not. What if someone thinks you are?
But this is legit. This is a legitimate issue today in today's society. I'm sorry.
It is.
It's a little bit different than the Lion King Disney show being put up.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then you know what? Let's bring Hamilton and only have black performers. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Then it's an appropriate use of school resources that we would bring certain shows here. I mean, they're doing Mamma Mia.
Again, I have no problem with what the school did. I have no problem with the school's stance on this. It's just the overall sensitivity that I'm a little bit
sensitive to.
Sensitive to, yeah, exactly.
All right, Nick, we've
this played out the way it should have played
Yes,
out.
it did.
No one acted, and I don't think they were reasonable in their response to this. The reasonable response is, oh, okay, fine, we'll drop them out of the show.
And we weren't trying to quiet them or
No.
silence them with an NDA. There was nothing like that
Okay,
in the,
good,
in the
good to
agreement.
hear.
And they refunded the money, which was the right thing to do. But I also think they did that because I think the backlash would have been a little bit more, too, on their end if they didn't return the money.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, I think you did good with clarifying as well because,
Yeah.
you know, with the newspaper articles and the Eagle Tribune, things tend to go one direction, then they go another, and then we find out afterwards it was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So I think it was important for you to come on today and let us know this is what's
Yeah.
exactly happening. And now it makes more sense because to me there is two sides to it, and the school has the right to do what
Absolutely.
it thinks is important, and I think the school did a great job on this. And I mean, a little more clarifying by you
Yeah,
right now was important to finish the message and say, hey, this is not to upset anybody. We think that they're great performers. We're the customer. We wanted something to happen. They said no, and we can't have that. And that is what it is. This is how some of the people feel. And no matter what, everybody's voice is important. And we have to take that into account. As sensitive as people think that this may be, it is what it is because people are going to get offended, and it is a very charged situation, especially what's already been going on in the country these past couple years, or not even decades.
couple months.
Decades.
I mean, of
every single time.
Decades,
you know?
but I mean, really,
But
it's,
right
now
now
it's
it's the
bubbled
couple
back
months.
up the last couple of months with Megan Kelly. All right, Nick, I appreciate you very much coming on and
lots of good info.
Absolutely, and clarifying and just giving us a lot of depth on the issue here. I do want to open up the lines to any other comments here, but I very much
absolutely.
appreciate you coming on today.
I wanna say two things. Thank you guys for hopefully telling the truth about this. And two, the joint meeting with the school committee and the city council. Again, Jen Canan and I have worked very well over the last year to make sure that the transparency there is working. I remember hearing that comment earlier, so I wanted to ping off that. And then, Tim, I expect for Christmas a Lou is always correct shirt.
I agree with Lou shirt.
Even now?
Yes.
He didn't even get it right. I should get the first one.
Rich is getting the first shirt. Rich.
Oh, no, I just changed it. I think we should start marketing different phrases that say he's right or correct all the time. I'm sorry. I thought.
Or I'm with Lou.
Yeah, I'm with Lou. Yeah,
I didn't expect that at the end of this conversation, but
All right.
okay, yeah, I'll take it.
Oh, and I did have one question for you before you go.
ahead.
Is there a replacement event? Because here's the thing. The kids are losing out. Are we working towards getting a replacement event?
I
Because
hate
these
to say it
scholarships
this way.
are
No,
important.
I hate to say
Yeah.
it this way. They were going to be spending $8,000 for this.
Mhm.
I don't know. The last time I saw the numbers on the sales for the show, I think it was under 8. So they would have probably lost money in the long run, or maybe gained some extra cash at the end. I'm just hoping to put another event out there, and I'll do whatever I have to do to help them out on that. I do think the scholarship team over there has done a great job with the meat raffles and the baskets that they do. They do several events throughout the year.
Oh yeah.
And the band knows that I support them. I go to 99.9% of their fundraisers if my schedule allows it, and so that.
Oh yeah, you were front and center at the meat raffle.
Yep, I was there. And,
meat raffle bingo.
Yep.
Did you win anything?
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had at one point 10 cards, and at 2 points I got zero numbers called or cards called, and at one point I had 2 cards picked. It's a 3-way bingo. They picked every card around that card. It could have been a 9 of diamonds. They picked an 8 of diamonds and a 7 of diamonds.
Sure.
And it's So
That's the way gambling works.
But yeah, no kidding. So I think Lindsay and I dropped a few hundred there, but it was definitely well worth it. Oh, it's well worth it.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely.
And listen,
you're just big money over here.
and I
don't think you knew this, but my stipend that I get for the school committee, every penny goes back to the students. Every penny goes back to the students. If it's not, I usually bid. I usually bid like a few $100, $300. I save most of it for the telethon because they always have Jen Canan's Red Sox tickets up there. And they always have a few, lottery ticket items that I try to bid. But if you ask Jen Canan, I've won her tickets for the last 3 years in a row.
All right, sir. We're going to let you go at this point. Appreciate you coming on.
Guys.
All right.
Anytime.
All right. We will. We're going to take a quick break, and we will reopen the phone lines 978-659-0072.
You know, the real problem with whataboutism is it requires consistency. And it points out selective outrage. That's the real problem.
He's making you think today.
He is making me think.
That's the problem with whataboutism. It exposes things.
We will get more into that right after the break here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center.
Everyone is cashing in on social media, and all marketing roads lead through social media. If you want to make a splash here in the Merrimack Valley, you need to tap in. This is where the new CEM podcast studios come in. Of course, you can spend your time, energy, and money learning how to wrangle technology to make a podcast instead of running your business. Or you can invest in telling everyone in the Merrimack Valley, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, the Seacoast, or everywhere in the world about your great business, product, service, or yourself. The CEM Podcast Studio is a local audio and video studio dedicated to the craft of podcasts. Their studios feature state-of-the-art recording and mixing equipment designed specifically to produce the best audio and video podcasts. Best of all you need to worry about is your show, your business, and your brand. We do the rest. Call 978-686-9966. That's 978-686-9966 to schedule a no-obligation tour of the CEM facilities and meet with a podcast specialist. Or go to CEMpodcast.com to find out more about podcasting services. CEMpodcast.com, your window to the world.
I love talking about my man Val Davila. It's a dream to own your own business, and Val and Susan Davila made that a reality in February 2013. They started with just 2 insurance carriers, but now right-in-place insurance for Progressive, Safeco, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock, and Mapfre, just to name a few. Need auto insurance, renters, commercial, or home? Davila and DeFusco prides itself in having lifelong roots in the Merrimack Valley. Put their experience to work for you. Visit them at 225 Broadway or call 978-241-7950 for a free quote, or visit them online at daviladefusco.com.
Back here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. We are in extreme overtime today. But listen, a heavy news day. Needed to be topics that needed to be addressed.
Good topics, yeah.
And I did not. We could have held
food. Jen was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Could have held the Nick interview, but I didn't want to because it's timely and it's a really cool story in terms of the UMass Lowell student winning the Oprah Winfrey Scholarship. So
right.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh, he's an amazing kid. Amazing kid. Phone number is 978-659-0072. We'll stay here for a couple more minutes. I mean, if folks have more to say on this topic and actually want to call in rather than go crazy in the comment thread. Alicia says intent is irrelevant in blackface. Let's see.
That's fine. Let's go down another level in that conversation.
Yep.
Why? Why is it irrelevant?
Because what blackface represents,
But intent
no matter
tells
intent,
you what it represents.
the mere
We're back to
appearance,
Confederate flag here
the
now.
mere appearance of blackface, of a white person putting on black makeup to minorities represents a denigration.
Again, I got to go to the next level. Why?
Well, black performers weren't allowed to play themselves. It was because they were black.
How old do you have to be to have experienced that?
You make a very valid point.
Absolutely. Anything that you see in terms of blackface, or in terms of the negative use of blackface, it's usually 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old.
Right.
You don't see it.
And
it's
listen,
not allowed.
I wouldn't perform in blackface if I were managing that act. I wouldn't let him perform in blackface. It's just stupid in 2018. But yeah, it's you when you stop at that first level, blackface is unacceptable. What's the problem with going a couple levels down in the conversation? Why? Why exactly?
No, I don't.
There shouldn't be a problem.
But I think that's what I mean. We do have to have the why conversation.
Yeah.
Like this is the discussion that everybody's having now online. Is this is awful. This is stupid. This is ridiculous. Why is this being canned? This is political correctness to the hilt. This is. Well,
I hate to be that guy, but it's one of my favorite arguments. It's the slippery slope argument. Where do we draw
Where do
the
you
line?
stop?
Again, dreadlocks or cornrows when they're doing Stevie Wonder, is that okay?
Yeah.
Why is the line in between cornrows and blackface? Why does it? How does that line make sense?
I mean,
Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
Oh yeah. Now see.
Again, Ren.
See,
I
didn't like because it was making fun of the situation, but then at the same time it was comedy. I didn't really enjoy the movie. Sometimes blackface to me, I don't like it.
Oh no,
for the majority of it.
And the use of blackface was called out in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, why the hell are you doing this?
Okay, what was the intent of him being in blackface in the movie? To disparage blackface, right?
Mm-hmm.
So intent is relevant in that particular instance.
You think his intent was to
think the movie's
discourage
intent.
blackface?
I'm going to have to go back and watch a movie now.
You think the intent of Tropic Thunder was to discourage blackface?
You think the intent was to get a bunch of people to perform in blackface?
I don't.
I think it was ridiculing blackface.
But
mocking and.
But on a level, it was.
Yeah.
Like on the surface, it was. Tropic Thunder's about as close as you get to that old school.
Okay.
That old school blackface, because he was definitely playing all the stereotypes there, and thought he could play blackface to win an Oscar.
Do you think?
Not in the movie.
Do you think
the movie within the movie?
Do you think Archie Bunker was promoting conservatism or mocking conservatism?
Boy, I mean, again, that's a fine line.
I don't think it is. It was mocking conservatism.
But
it was also mocking.
But all the
mocked Meathead too.
Okay,
so, yeah.
But conservatives have appropriated Archie Bunker. Like,
sure.
Why can't we go back to the days of Archie Bunker?
Well, those are conservatives who aren't really paying attention.
But I mean,
because they were being mocked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, but you have to dig a level deeper to understand that.
Well, I'm a big fan of going to the next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm all about Samsung Next Level.
Yeah.
Remember the ESPN, the whole Samsung Next Level graphics.
Where does the line move next week?
And it will.
Yeah, of course it will.
I can't criticize someone that whether you're a parent of black kids trying to teach them or you've experienced it. If you've experienced any racism in your life, I can't tell them they're wrong for feeling this way.
And no, you can't.
That this is black. I mean, that blackface is blackface. There's no.
I understand. You understand.
There's no subtlety.
The Irish were enslaved, right?
What'd you say?
You understand the Irish were enslaved in this country.
Yes.
During the same period. As an Irish person, several generations down the road, how much claim do I have to that wrongdoing?
I mean, okay, but see, now we're going in a different direction in terms of reparations and and
Whataboutisms.
blame and what about it?
Well, the blackface discussion here is based in the fact that it represents an offense from, what, 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I guess I'm frustrated at this very moment. I thought we'd get some calls today on this topic, but then
getting
again,
a lot of comments.
But we're getting a lot of comments. But again, it's fairly. You can be, even though your name's on the comment. You know, there's something different about calling in and having a discussion about it. You know, you lose the context in comics.
Right.
Oh, you do. You
Comments
definitely do.
And I believe the same way about texting.
I just show up to the studio.
Yeah, you just show up with Chick-fil-A and get on the mic, you know? You know, you have so many people voting, you know, saying that they shouldn't have canceled the show, and you have so many people calling this ridiculous and yet they're not calling to actually take part in the discussion.
The poll was on a different premise than we found out that it was. Nick's great phone call, which clarified a lot of the things that were going on here. It wasn't a case of, the poll was based on the fact that the school said, blackface? No, you're done. We can't have you. And you can make a decision based on that if you want, but that wasn't the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation was, hey, we're a public school. We're going to get blowback for this. Can you not do the blackface? Should have been a reasonable request, should have been honored.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what the school department should do. Again, when we start raising it to the level of the whole blackface discussion, I think we have to go down a couple levels and just keep asking why.
I completely agree. But can you tell somebody that how can you, if you haven't lived it, how can you tell someone to not feel?
Again, I have as much connection to slavery as a modern day African American. My people were enslaved. You remember what the Irish went through in this country?
Absolutely, but
And the
we're not
Italians,
talking.
for that
I mean,
matter?
we're not talking, but we're talking specifically about what this represents. We're not talking about slavery. You know, we're talking about specifically what this represents.
Racism, slavery.
Yeah.
So was there discrimination and bigotry against Italians and Irish when they came to this country?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, is there?
How much claim do I have to that today? How
Not
can
a
I get
whole lot.
offended if you were to come back at me on that principle? Do I get to say? Do I get to say you can't comment on that? You're not Irish. You don't understand. I have no connection to what happened. I have no connection to far and away. I have no connection to Irish slavery. I have no connection to the potato famine. I'm several generations down the road. I'm living in America today.
I'm taken aback by the revelation that you're Irish.
What would you say is the level of discrimination today against Irish people?
Against
Irish people today, right now.
Okay, how do we quantify that?
Well, have you heard of a lot of people, or anybody, in fact, in recent times?
You feel like Irish are being discriminated
No, I
against?
didn't say that. The question was, have you heard anybody disparage the Irish? And I have.
Oh, of
I won't
course.
name names.
Of course.
Now, would you say that black people, Asian, less or more than Irish people disparaged against today?
More.
But
and I don't want to get into a measuring contest.
no,
here.
no, exactly, and that's what it's about.
I'm a
what
conservative. Do you think I get any blowback for being a conservative?
Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I deal with it. I mean, and this is a very dangerous conversation. Equating racism in the '60s and equating racism in the 1870s, as opposed to racism in 2018. We got to recognize it's a different conversation. There is racism. There's bigotry all over the place. We're a country divided. I'll have a lot of bigotry against each other for any number of reasons.
The other part of this is, which a couple people have brought
Should I have a
up in
problem
the
with
comments.
Hamilton because it's discriminating against my political beliefs?
I mean, you choose not to go.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
Yeah, and that's the other.
And by the way, stand up and say, "Hey, that's stupid," and I choose not to go.
And that's the other part of this discussion is if and
if this was a private entity putting on this show, that would be the argument. You don't like it, don't go to the show. But don't judge me for wanting to go to the show. But it wasn't a private entity that put on the show. It was a school district that
agree
was
with them
part
completely.
of the show.
Absolutely agree with them.
Would have done exactly the same thing.
I agree.
Yep.
I mean, listen, that was a no-win situation for the school district. If they cancel it, they're gonna get blowback. If they keep it on, they're gonna get blowback. I thought it was handled very professionally in the way they took every measure to address folks' concerns and still have the show, and it just didn't work out. That said,
I got to ask, why are prejudice and racism different? What's the distinction? These statements just come out. These first level statements
that's
just
what I'm
come
saying.
out.
That's what I'm saying. It's all these comments
And you got to be
on
afraid
both
to
sides
ask
of
the
this.
question.
On both sides of this, all these comments just come out in the comments section. These one-liners, and it's like, okay,
Call on the phone.
We can actually have a discussion. Like
Jim Crow laws.
Tell me why
a family in Methuen in 2018.
Yeah.
What's their claim to
tell me
offense from Jim Crow
Tell me the
laws?
difference between prejudice and racism. Is prejudice a belief, whereas racism is an active motion, an active step in imparting your views on people, or just discriminating and restricting people because of their views, whereas prejudice is just a view that doesn't. I don't know what that line is.
Does racism exist without prejudice? The difference between prejudice and racism is specific to a race.
And you see, Alicia, we had this discussion earlier. It's like you want to have a serious discussion about this. You want to have a honest discussion about this. Yeah. Don't tell me to look up racism for dummies.
Exactly.
Okay? I mean, call the damn show.
That's the response of someone who can't stand on the merit of their arguments.
Just
turn the discussion on you.
You want to have let's have a discussion.
On me,
okay?
actually.
What's the phone number?
We don't have folks in. Unfortunately, we don't have a melting pot in this studio at the moment to have the discussion. But you can still have the discussion. Where this all breaks down. I could say the same to you, Alicia. Don't act so fragile in being upset about this whole thing, okay? I could say the same thing to you, but you know what? We could have a civil discourse about this too.
This
okay?
is why
this is where it all breaks down. Every single topic anything controversial that you discuss, it breaks down because people get personal and stupid. And start slinging mud at each other,
right?
Instead of actually having a conversation about it.
Ad hominem.
Ridiculous.
And this is where it always gets, because in many cases in these discussions, the battleground is moral superiority. And
honestly, that is what Alicia and Diana Cortez and all the folks that have made these comments, they are acting more morally superior.
You disagree with me, you're a dummy.
Yeah, and that, listen, if I can respect your view, if I can respect your frustration and your views on this, at least take the chance to respect mine. And let's have a discussion, not a down in the mud, winner takes all, mudslinging. It's ridiculous.
What's the matter with taking this discussion down a couple levels and asking a couple whys and exploring these feelings that are?
It's why we never get anywhere.
Why are people?
I wrote a piece. And Diana, I'm not saying you were offensive, okay? But you're making one-liners about prejudice and racism and not equating. And I'm saying it's morally superior, and we never actually get to have a discussion. I did an article 16 years ago, okay, when I was in a newspaper in upstate New York. We did a series, myself, this reporter Nadia Winter. I'm white, she's black. We invited a panel of a diverse panel into a room to have a discussion about race for a day, and it probably is about 12 hours, and you know what? It took a long time to get below the surface, but once we actually did that, it was actually productive. But we're in that same spot as I was 17 years ago doing that story. If you can't actually get below the level and have a civil, respected conversation, we're never going to get anywhere.
The basic question here is, why would a family in Methuen in 2018, and again, I'm not recommending they perform in blackface. I think it's stupid that they do. It's not necessary. It's asking for trouble. It's the culture we live in. But why would a family in Methuen in 2018, white, African American, or whatever, get offended to the point that they're performing in blackface, to the point of contacting the school department? What's going on here? You got nothing else to be offended about?
I mean, seriously, and I mean,
You're
she opened
offended,
the door.
don't go.
She opened the door saying, "Don't act so." Unbelievably, don't act so fragile. I mean, you could literally turn it back.
And the answer is going to be, well, Jim Crow laws.
The comments, you're right, Heather. The comments have not been, and that's what I reacted to, Heather. The comment about go read Racism for Dummies.
This is perfect. How is it harming students of color? What is the actual harm?
It's
here?
not. I'll say it. It's not.
If it had not, and I'm getting in because I'm defending a position that I don't want to defend. But the only reason this would harm students of color is because it was a created harm by people. Do you think the students in 2018 have any understanding of blackface and Jim Crow laws and the history of this and how it's only supposed to be offensive because they're told it's offensive?
And Diana, if did I say Diana was offensive? If I said Diana was offensive, I apologize. I was speaking about morally superior in these comments, and then not taking it to actually calling the show and having a discussion about the comments that you're making.
I can't speak for students of color, but she can, apparently.
Yes.
So my son, you think my son's offended by The Godfather?
You tell me.
He probably thinks it's great.
If I raised him to be offended by The Godfather because it portrays his ancestry in a bad light, would he be offended by The Godfather? That's created.
It is. It's created.
Mm-hmm. It's different when you were when your grandparents were slaves. It's different when your grandparents were in Memphis in the '60s. It's different, I guess, especially if you have contact with your grandparents. But it's 2018.
I mean, you still see a lot of junk in schools in terms of the way people treat each other. But ironically enough, I had this conversation earlier with someone, and just in terms of, you can already see this generation evolving in the way they treat each other, in what they see. They don't see color as much as they used to. They don't. When you're talking about mental illness, that is not as much of a stigma with this younger generation. So, but that is based on those kids being allowed to think independently, to form their own opinions rather than having it put on them by parents, by whatever it be, by textbooks, by. It's important to know our history, but we have to have a chance to evolve. I know we're getting a little deeper. No. We're getting really deep here. I just
it's you can't have the conversation. And I don't know. Her kid was taught about blackface and as a 12-year-old.
And listen, and this is what I was saying earlier is that you have Alicia is living in existence that I cannot relate to because I am not married to a black person. I'm not raising kids of color.
I guess my hope is I think we'd be in a better place as a society if people looked at them performing in blackface and said, "What a bunch of idiots," and didn't go.
Yeah,
that's where we want to get, right?
Yeah. Instead of, I mean,
I don't know.
But would we be in a better place if we're saying that the Edwards twins are a bunch of idiots just because they're in black makeup and they're trying to in their eyes pay tribute?
Well, they are though.
They are what?
They are a bunch of idiots
for
performing in blackface. Yes.
Yeah.
In this day, of course, in this day and age, there's no reason. There's no reason.
Well, I think their argument's going to be again.
I mean,
we talked about
how many Stevie
earlier,
Wonder
the
impressions are
intent.
there out there? And how many are doing it in blackface?
And Lisa, I get it. It's frustrating. She says it's frustrating to try to educate people that aren't clued in.
See, that's moral superiority.
But again,
we're back to it.
That's moral superiority, and it's
I'm intellectually superior to you.
You're painting a very broad brush in just saying that everyone that you've come across isn't clued in. I'm clued in. I'd like to have an actual discussion about it and not just be slinging. You know
how you get clued in?
You're an idiot.
Taking the discussions to another level.
Yeah.
That's how you get clued in.
Yeah.
Instead of just regurgitating everything you're told.
Alicia, there's a difference between refusing refusing to trying to understand, okay? Because we are trying to understand. But
hence the question, why?
Ultimately, you want to force us to change our opinion. And our view, that there's an understanding and educating of both sides without going there. Diana's on the line.
Yes.
Okay, Diana. If I said that I was being offensive, that you were being offensive, I apologize. That's not what I was saying.
Hi. Yes, I'm actually not really here to talk about that.
Sure.
Really, and it's okay. I totally get it. I just want you to kind of sort of understand, as a person of color that I am, living in Methuen and raising two, one brown boy, one black boy, that my experience is totally different and my outlook on life is totally different than your experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when I was commenting on the thread here in the discussion, it was kind of like chiming in.
Diana, can you turn the volume down in your background there?
Sure. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So the reason why I was sort of just chiming in on the comment section is basically when I was hearing the other gentleman talking about his experience being Irish and their experience with slavery. They're very different in terms of the way the Irish were enslaved, because they were, we understand that. But it's important to understand the history of African American and people of color in America and how it continues to be a problem to this day in 2018. So when we look back at of why blackface is not okay, is because of the movie The Birth of a Nation and how that really hurt the African American community. That set precedent to the KKK coming out and just emboldening them and the mass lynchings that happened after that. So it's very painful when we know the history. We want to educate other individuals about the history of what happened
and absolutely
why this is not okay. And then for it to be sort of downplayed and saying, well, what about my experience? What about this? And it's like,
No,
You know what I mean? It's like,
and so that's not what we're trying to do at all in terms of downplaying. It's just a matter of like completely understanding the pain that all of those images invoke, and that and all of these things that have happened and continue to happen in today's society. We cannot relate on your level because we're not living it, but I'm smart enough to see it. All I'm saying is, how does I'm making the point that how does a white performer putting on black makeup to pay tribute to a black performer, how is that the same? How are we putting that on equal ground as blackface, as the unfortunate, and I hate the word classic in this instance, but the old school version of blackface?
Yeah, and I totally understand and respect your question and your position. And I think what happens is that the moment that we see an image of a white person with black makeup on, it brings up a lot of trauma because of the historical context of it. Okay, so you have to look at it from that perspective. And
Absolutely.
Although it's not, to them it's probably not malice or anything like that, we have qualified African American, talented, amazing artists that can fill in those roles. And there's no need for a person, a white person, especially a person. Unfortunately, there is white privilege, and we have to look at that and we have to unpack that. And for individuals who are white to say, you know what, I get to put on blackface, I get to put on this makeup and perform, even though they're not trying to do it in an offensive manner, it's still offensive because now you're monetizing on the success and the artistry of these individuals, and you're taking that away again. Like, how much more are you going to take away?
No. But okay,
you know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But so when you have for instance, a Vegas show of impersonators, that anybody could play that role. They do have, nowadays they do have people of color playing Ray Charles, for instance. But in this context, you have two brothers that do the show. They don't have anybody. They don't have any other performers in that show. It's just the two of them. I don't think it's a matter of them like saying they get to do blackface. It's that like the rest of their impressions, they have the ability to emulate that performer, and with whether it be their voice or their mannerisms, so they have that ability. So they're using it. They're using that skill in a manner of tribute. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah. That in a typical situation where you have a show where anybody could play a black performer, or that it should be a black performer that's doing that. I'll say the same thing about I don't know
what that is.
Yeah, whether it be deaf people playing. They have there's a new deaf character on The Walking Dead, for instance, and instead of having somebody that's not deaf playing it, as you have had in the past, they actually have truly deaf people playing the role and educating people about sign language and about the experience of living deaf. I know in a lot of ways apples to oranges, but I understand what you're saying there, but I'm saying in this specific instance, I don't think they've proven to be that. It just hasn't come out in everything we've seen from this show that they're trying to denigrate, or they're trying to appropriate or take away.
you're getting back to the specific at this point.
And it doesn't have to be any of those things for it not to be offensive. It is still offensive.
Let me ask you a question.
And this is, I'm sorry, let me just
absolutely.
point one thing out. So we want to make sure that we have representation for our kids, so that our kids can see that they could be able to be whomever, correct? We always, want to make sure that the demographics of our schools, of our teachers, of our administrators, represent sort of like what our student body looks like. Because we want to make sure that young people of colors particularly can see themselves as being greater than, to being more than, because systemically, for so long, we've been told that you can't. There shouldn't be anymore in 2018 the first, anything anymore, the first black anything anymore. We shouldn't be there, but unfortunately we still are. So when individuals that are white paint their faces and act as though they're black people, even if it's not, if they meant no harm by it, they admire that artist, it is still offensive to people of color, because we want to make sure that our young people can see themselves as being amazing. And these individuals, whether they understand it or not, maybe it could be willful ignorance, whatever the case may be, they're taking that away. And it is somewhat cultural appropriation in a sense. Again, if they really wanted to have and they admire these artists, I am sure they can collaborate with African American artists to portray those roles. They don't have to do that. They don't have to paint their faces in a dark color. Megyn Kelly spoke about it, and it's like, oh, there's no big deal. What happened? She lost her job. A lot of individuals have been doing that for Halloween, and they've lost their jobs.
I gotta admit, that Megyn Kelly argument right there is a little bit off for me.
It hasn't even been in company parties. It's been like on their own time. They posted a picture online with their friends, and in blackface, trying to be like Beyonce or whatever the case may be, and they got fired because it's not okay. And I think we need to really unpack the pain that we feel.
Let me do that right now. Let me do that right now. I want to get there. I only want to ask this question because I need to understand the mechanism here. You started out this conversation by talking about protecting your kids from the trauma of a 1915 film. And I want to know the mechanism there. How do your kids become traumatized by a film made in 1915?
So I didn't say that I was a child or my children from that. What I referenced that movie was because when they originally created The Birth of a Nation with a white male in blackface,
right,
and being a vicious rapist going after this poor little white woman that was sitting in a branch somewhere.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, and then the Ku Klux Klan came over and they saved her and they killed this savage, right? So that started a movement for mass lynchings in the South.
I understand the history.
And also the rise of the KKK.
That's not my question. I don't need a history lesson. I understand the history. I'm asking the mechanism, how it affects your living room and your family in 2018. I want to understand that mechanism, yes.
You understand? Say that again, I'm sorry.
I want to understand the mechanism that this 1915 film and the Ku Klux Klan, how it traumatizes, how it affects your day-to-day life in Methuen in 2018.
It affects my life in Methuen in 2018 and everywhere I go, Salem, New Hampshire, anywhere in New Hampshire, because I have a black son and I have a brown son. And whenever we get pulled over by the police, I have a fear. Because for a long time, a lot of these police officers, and you guys know, they were involved with the KKK on the low, and we know that.
Yep.
That's nothing that we're not going to try to sugarcoat, right? So there are racist cops, not all of them, but there's many. So for me, my 20-year-old son does not drive right now, and to be honest, he failed his driving test, and I was actually relieved. As a mom, I was relieved because I said, you know what? What if my child gets pulled over in 2018? Anywhere we go, Salem, New Hampshire, anywhere else in New Hampshire, he gets pulled over by a racist police officer, and I don't know if that's the last day that I'm going to see my son. That's how that affects me. And I'm not sure that you could ever understand that. And that's the reason that makes a connection with the movie because the movie gave rise to the KKK. The KKK had memberships that were police officers, and to this day we're seeing this neo-Nazi, this alt-right, all this, white nationalists. We're seeing that.
Have you ever had an incident? Have you ever had an incident with a police officer that you would consider racist?
I've never had an incident with a police officer, but I will tell you this: I'm an Afro-Latina, which means that I was born in Puerto Rico. I am of African descent, and I speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell you countless times how many incidents I've had where a white person would tell me, "Speak English, you're in America."
Okay.
Or if I were in a store, assume that I'm going to steal something. And it's hurtful. And those experiences, as children get older, they know. And they ask questions. And as a parent, you have to sort of guide them. I had to have a conversation with my sons about policing, about how to be respectful, how to talk. And then I think to myself, you know what? Is this even worth it? Because Martin Luther King was gunned down while wearing a suit. And sometimes I tell my sons, don't wear this, don't talk like this. Make sure you're respectful. Make sure you don't allow white people to feel uncomfortable. So I have to, it's making sure that they understand that they're black in white spaces.
Could you not consider the fact that you're perpetuating the fear among your child by telling them that the police used to be part of the KKK and you might get shot when you get pulled over?
My kids are old enough. My kids are old enough and smart enough to research things, to read, and see the history and understand the history. So it's not that I'm not going to shunt them from
your kids on your own.
They're going to learn this stuff. You know what I mean? That's just how it is.
Your kids on their own research the fact that some police used to be in the KKK, and this is what they spend their time doing.
My kids do a lot of things, and it's not just that. But we cannot shy away from that, and we cannot discount that. And what you're doing right now is discounting my experience.
When you have I'm trying to understand the mechanism. I'm trying to understand the mechanism and see at a certain point where I get you at a point where you can't defend your position, you start attacking me.
No. Let me just jump in. Let me jump in for 1 second. What is said here is that there is a history of actions that have taken place. There is it's not a reach to say that there's a history of racist police and I mean
there's racism, yes.
Racism
exists. Yes.
Institutional racism that impacts people daily today.
I object to the institutional aspect, but racism does exist.
But so what she's saying is she's preparing them for what has happened, and so if they have those interactions, act respectful. Don't put yourself in do everything you can to not be discriminated against.
There's also the point as well
I
that
tell my kids to be respectful in police interactions as well. That's just good advice.
She's also preparing them.
Disproportionately, people of color have been murdered by police.
Have you been murdered by police? Anyone in your family?
Well, I mean, here's that thing. And there's one other thing that I wanted to add to what Tim said, is that it's going on today. And I can say, yes, I've been discriminated against myself. People thought I was, somebody thought I was Spanish. Let's just put it this way. I bought a brand new car. Commonwealth Motors bought a brand new Honda Civic.
Yep.
And that, the very next day, I was pulled over in Salisbury, Massachusetts. And the guy came up, unclipped that weapon of his, and then he came up, walking slowly, called back up, everything. They thought I had stole my car.
Wow.
Based on what?
Based off of...
Based off his look. I mean, pretty much, right?
My name didn't match something in their system, is the way it went. And then here in Methuen, even, this is going back to being a teenager, I was pulled over for a headlight out, is what it ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was police dogs, searching my car for drugs. I got my legs kicked out but that doesn't mean I think that all cops are bad. I just know that there's some out there that aren't exactly.
Absolutely.
And they do judge based off of race. I've been judged for majority of my life based off of race as well, so I understand the fear. But I'm not going to, me personally, everybody's a different person. I'm not going to think that all cops are bad. I think there's a few bad eggs out there, and that's it. And I'm not saying that she does or anybody else does.
Our law enforcement system is racist front to back?
No.
According to our senior senator?
I do not agree with her at all whatsoever.
In the comments here, racism was attached to the quote-unquote war on drugs and mass incarceration.
I wouldn't agree to that comment as well.
But the inability to go down to the next level, the inability to ask the question what the basis are for these feelings, leads to those impressions.
Well,
which is why you have the discussion, which is why you ask why.
You know, that's why I always, I mean, we have discussions. I answer that why to the best of my ability, and then I provide the historical context for myself and what has happened in my life.
Right.
Because I'm not going to sit there and necessarily judge other people. I don't know what it's like to be a black person in America. I personally don't think blackface is appropriate, but at the same time, I try to look at both sides of the argument, and then I like to listen and to see and be respectful of everybody's opinion. And that's just the way I'm going to continue being. I'm truly independent in like a lot of different facets. I vote for Republicans and Democrats.
But do you see the mechanism that happened today? Just by asking the question why, you get attacked and you get called morally inferior and, you know, and intellectually inferior because you asked the question why.
It's an
like I
important
mentioned,
question.
my position was never to be offensive.
Oh no, and we didn't think it was.
Yeah, so it just comes from sharing my personal experience, sharing some of the things that I know, and I think one of the most important things that we need to do as humans is to really listen. Is to really listen. Listen to people's pain. Listen to where it comes from. And I think that sometimes when we say, well, what about this and what about that, it sort of like just negates these feelings and also the real raw data that we see. Yes, there are more people of color, black men in color, incarcerated than there are white with the same amount of crimes. They commit the same amount of crimes, yet more black people are incarcerated. So we got to look at that, and that's why I mentioned mass incarceration. So not only is understanding our legitimate fears and feelings and traumas, but also looking at raw data. Looking at you can look at the FBI statistics on crimes, and you can see, and also all the articles. There was an article in the Boston Globe, I believe, that talked about that there was a disproportionate amount of individuals of color locked up in our facilities here in Massachusetts than there are whites. And then, so we have to look at that, and it's not to be like, a lot of individuals. I can only imagine, and I can't. Again, I can't imagine. But if I was a white person, how would I feel? How would I feel knowing these facts, knowing these things? I might want to, say, you know what, and try to fight back and say, you know what, no, I'm not racist, I'm not this, but I don't. But at the end of the day, it's like take a moment, just and just listen to what we have to say, because this is what we're dealing with. It's not what you're dealing with. It's what we're dealing with from a historical perspective, but it continues on and on and on. And how I mentioned before, in 2018, we shouldn't have the first, congresswoman elected to our the House of Representatives in 2018. The first.
Is that Ayanna
right?
Presley you're talking about?
Yeah. So yes, I am. So I'm saying, so in first of a lot of different areas as well. The first black person to do this, the first person to do that. So when we look at that, it's like we have come a long way in our society with racism, and but we still have a long way to go, because there's a lot of individuals who still aren't willing to listen. They're not willing to listen, and I think that's where the problem lies.
I'm willing to listen. I'm asking questions, and I'm being called an idiot for asking a question.
I didn't call you an idiot. Just so you know, I don't think you're an idiot, and I didn't call you an idiot. And I did mention a book that I read that I thought was really powerful, which was A Critical Race Theory. And that really broke down a lot of these historical and also modern systemic racism that has occurred and continues to occur. And also, I actually read another book, The New Jim Crow, which is an amazing book as well. And I think that, being enlightened and being educated on these things is not a bad thing. There's nothing bad with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think educating our young people around this as well is not bad at all either.
Absolutely.
So I sometimes I don't understand where this notion of don't tell your kids about the history or whatever, where that stems from, because we need to be able to teach our children, because we know that history that is suppressed will continue, will happen again, and it will repeat itself. So as adults, we need to guide our young people, and we need to educate them to the best of our abilities, because we want to have a more inclusive country. America's beautiful. I love this country. And I want to make sure that everyone that is in this country feels, cared for, feels included, feels that they have a seat at the table. And I think that's the more we move towards understanding, the more we can move forward and progress as a society. Because I'll be very honest, in the beginning, during 9/11, I had a fear for Muslim people. Because of why? The media, this constant barrage of they're bad, Islam is bad. And until I took a moment to do some independent research and get to know these individuals and talk to them on a personal level, I understood that it's not what the media is saying. It is not what these whole fear base is all about. You got to get to know people and understand their struggles and their pains. And once I was able to understand that, then, I believe that Muslims are great people. And I think that we need to unpack that and really reject any type of bias, any type of, even if it's the slightest way, even if you don't see it, like this whole blackface thing, even if it's like, oh, it's not that big a deal, we got to make it a bigger deal.
Well, that's why it's important to unpack it, because in the world today, even through our news and media, we've got opposite sides completely. And until people start, I lived in the Middle East myself for a couple years as a kid, and to some degree, it's tough if you're American over there. It's crazy, but all in a sense, most of my best friends were Muslim at that point. I went to different places, and it was a little easier for me because I don't exactly look white. Most people think I'm Spanish or Cambodian or, something different than what I'm actually am. But no, I completely agree. The media goes ahead and portrays things in different ways, and we do have to reject that bias sometimes. And that happens today. The bias is there on both sides.
The more that we have just these sort of on, and listen, we're going to disagree. It's, a lot of times in these sort of discussions, because it's emotional, you have a life experience that I don't, and so you sharing it, very emotional, me reacting to it. If you have any empathy in anything that you said earlier, it does get to you, and you do start to understand, even though you haven't lived it, you start to understand by listening. So I listen. I asked for folks to call. I really appreciate you calling in here.
Yeah, thank you.
And listen, I mean this has to be an ongoing discussion. It really, the more we have these sort of discussions, the more we're not all our own little camps hating each other, I guess, really. If you get that,
it's this tribalism effect that's happening, and I think that's something that we need to get out of our comfort zone. We're America's only going to get more diverse, and we're going to end up having to build walls around each other because we don't want to interact with other people.
No, that's kind of what we're doing right now. We need to start calling people, not by race, not by this, not by that, gay, straight, whatever. My true belief, I tell my daughter all the time, listen, you don't have to qualify people by giving them, they're people. You know
Yeah.
what? That's a person.
Not black,
if they're mean
not,
to me,
not yellow, not.
then
yeah,
I'm going to stay away from
they're
them. If
people.
they're good people,
Yeah.
I'm going to surround myself with them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what color they are or whatever, whatever about them. If they're all people and they're kind to me, hey, that's my friend. That's it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think that once my hope is that in the future, we can start to dismantle this whole racism thing, because it's actually not even a thing. It's a social construct, right? So when we look at that and we start to dismantle that and see each other as people, as human beings, and sometimes I joke around with my children and I say, you know what? I think what's going to unite us is when we have an alien invasion. Because at the end of the day,
well, it's true. It's true. You need
that
something.
Would unite us.
It's true. You hate to say that, but you do need a united villain that everybody can get out of their own corners, and we're all in fear of. I get what you're saying there. Hey, listen, I appreciate you calling in. I'm gonna reach out to you. I'm gonna reach out to you via Messenger off the comments, because I don't want this to be the end of the conversation. You're very eloquent. You spoke very well, and I really appreciate you calling in. You're kicking me out of the studio, so I kind of got to go. But
Yeah, you were fantastic, Diana. Thank you.
have a good day. Thank you.
You as well.
Thank you so much for
Very much appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So, I think at one point you do, at some point, and there was the Four Dummies comment in the comments, and there are breakdowns in the conversation. There are breakdowns in the conversation when you ask those questions. We got to keep pushing through it. You got to keep pushing through, and like you said, just keep digging down and listen to each other, because listen, Diana has an experience. I mean, I
We all have an experience.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
I bring this up often, but
and apparently my experience is I'm part of a society that's systemically racist, and I'm the enemy.
Well,
I think she forgot she said that because, not the systemic racism, but she said this man needs a course on race relations in America. But really, I think what should have been taken out of all you're doing is asking why. You actually agreed with their side of the whole issue that just happened, and then it became
all you're
doing trying
to figure out why it
is
escalated from those people are idiots, I'm not going to that show.
Yes.
To what we're having today. And apparently the answer is I'm a white guy, so I'm the enemy. I can't see anybody's experiences. I can't understand anything that's going on. I don't know history. I don't know anything about race relations. I don't know anything.
But
they know my experience. I can't know their experience, especially a white woman here.
That's simplifying it. But it's. I mean, that's what happens in these comments in the social media when we don't actually have the conversation. I felt once we actually had a conversation with Diana, started to understand some of her experiences. If we're not trying to change each other's minds, that's what I feel like so much. Like, if
my
we can
mind
just
is
listen,
trying to be changed from a position I don't hold.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
you're asking questions though.
Yeah,
that's all you're doing, and you may not agree with their take. They obviously don't agree with your take.
I don't agree that America is systemically racist and the law enforcement system is systemically racist and all white people are systemically racist. No, I don't believe in that concept. I don't.
And I don't think they do either. I think.
I don't know.
I don't think.
What I'm hearing a lot of today.
Well, some people do. I'm not saying that all people do, or both of them do, or anything like that. What I'm saying is, some people are, and some people aren't. And I think it's important to always ask the question that you've been asking this entire show: is why do you feel this way? Why? And if we can't do that and people start screaming at you about it, you can't do anything. But I'm so glad that Diana called.
I'm going to leave you with this question. It's the question you asked, too. So I want you to go home and contemplate the questions you asked. When I talked about the Irish being enslaved and the Irish experience in the United States when they first came here, and you ask, do you hear a lot of that now? I want you to go down a couple levels and ask why. What your answer is and why.
We'll have a conversation later. I'll talk to you. I'm going to go home and think about
Why
it.
do the Irish have a different experience in 2018 than other minorities who are oppressed?
I have a thought on that, but I'm going to go think about it some more before I go ahead and respond.
Here's what I will say to you is that the Irish were not the minority of the moment anymore. They're not the target anymore. They don't stand out anymore.
I think his argument's going to be different.
Why?
Why?
I think he's going to...
I would say partially maybe we got to know the Irish and realized they're not bad people.
Why?
Why what?
Well, I think I know
why have they had that experience and other minorities, oppressed minorities, haven't had that experience?
Because the instances of racism keep happening against.
No,
why?
I think I think I know what his argument's going to be, but I'm going to have to look into it a little bit more. But I think his argument's going to be that they were taught differently.
I mean, but do you honestly? I'm saying that they're still being discriminated against today.
Who?
Black people.
Yes.
You know, and Spanish people, Mexico, whoever, they're still being discriminated against. Irish people aren't being discriminated against today.
As much.
I'm asking the question. Why? What's the difference?
Can you give me an answer instead of asking a question?
No, because, see, this is it. This is going down the level. This is trying to figure
But give me an
out.
answer.
Well, for example.
Why?
What if I told my kid, my Irish kid, don't go apply for that job. You're never going to get it. They hate Irish people.
It's not as simple as taught.
No one ever said it was simple.
It's boy. All right.
I never said it was simple.
It's got to be to be continued. Yeah. we're up on the Facebook.
Because we're going to get the why again in a second.
Clock.
What you had here, what Diana talked about, was her expressing to her child about all the problems he could run into with a police officer on the street. Right? What happened there was this fear and this separation was perpetuated in another generation.
And yet, if you take your guard down and don't prepare your kids, then are we saying that the race? Are we? So what are you saying? Are you saying that it's random and that racism could happen whether you prepare your kids or not? Or I mean, what are we saying?
Fake it until you make it. If you're going to live and raise your children in an environment, that is, careful out there, you know, everyone's racist. You're going to perpetuate that in another generation.
I mean, it's anything of that ilk. Careful. Don't talk to people. They're always going to hurt you.
She referenced the movie from 1915, which I don't know if has any relevance to any young child's upbringing, white, black, or indifferent.
It's part of their history of being oppressed.
Okay, so it's part of my history of being racist. Does that make me a racist? Do I continue to perpetuate those ideas?
And because
I mean, they weren't my ancestors. My ancestors came over in the potato family. But these were white people who were racist in 1915. Does that set me on the course of racism for this generation, for the next generation, for the next generation after that?
But the points that you're bringing up are important, though. I mean, it's you make a good point.
Alicia says police have predetermined fears and perceptions. They have predetermined fears and perceptions because there are mothers home teaching their kids that when you get pulled over by a cop, watch it because they're out to kill you. That's a contributing factor here. It's perpetuation.
It cuts both ways.
It does. That's the whole point.
It cuts both ways. So where do you stop it?
You stop societal problems the same place you stop every societal problem. In the kitchen?
When is Diana gonna feel comfortable enough not to prepare her kids for being pulled over? Like, where does it stop?
When the numbers change. Because she was talking about
the numbers
FBI
haven't changed yet. That's the thing.
Once the numbers change, then people don't have an argument for the now. They can. Anybody can always argue the past, but until we start seeing some change in the numbers, these FBI numbers, because they do exist. I've seen them, and I've looked up all that kinds of numbers that the FBI puts out on crimes and
believe
statistics.
that law enforcement is racist front to back?
No,
like our
absolutely not.
Senior senator does. Well, this is the argument you're making.
Well, no, I'm saying numbers
because
do say something.
She's transferring experiences from Ferguson, which was a justified shooting, by the way, and other racial incidents. She's transferring them to Salem and Methuen.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily agree with those exact. We can
she's taking
agree to
FBI
disagree.
numbers and raising her kids with the understanding that this is going to be their experience.
I mean, each parent does their own thing. I don't, I try to teach my daughter that everybody is, everybody deserves the respect. They're all human beings.
I know, but the attitude of institutional racism, that it exists, it's pervasive, and it's here, and everybody's, that the 80% of the country, it's the 80-20 rule. There are 10% who are radical on one side, 10% who are radical on the other, 10% are racist. There are 80% of us here in our country just trying to pay our mortgage, and put food on the table, put our kids through school. That's the 80% of America. You can focus on the other 20% if you want and perpetuate everything they're doing, or you can focus on the 80% of America, which, by the way, I'm guessing is 80% of Methuen, 80% of Salem, 80% of Methuen cops, 80% of Salem cops.
I mean, I understand. I mean, I don't hold anything against what happened to me in my specific situations that happened to me with police officers. I am friends with Joe Solomon, and I'm not going to hold anything against.
These two guys come to Methuen to do an impression of Stevie Wonder, and they do it in blackface. And what that equates to, apparently, is kitchen table discussions about Jim Crow laws and the birth of a nation. I don't think that's necessary. Again, the response here should have been, what a bunch of idiots. Because that's who they are.
I can agree with that.
Instead, what the end of the conversation was about these two idiots performing in blackface is that I'm a racist. So where are we? We're worse off now than when we started the conversation.
You're a racist because you think it's okay they perform.
I've said repeatedly, I think it's stupid to perform in blackface. But I think it's equally unwise to get all worked up about it. Just say they're idiots and don't go to the show. And by the way, if the school says, I don't want to put people up there in blackface, they're perfectly fine. They don't want the headache. And by the way, it may not be appropriate for everybody. I have no problem with anything that happened with that show. The only problem I have with it is, why did it turn into a big deal?
It turned into a big deal because the conversation afterwards became very slanted against the folks who had this minority view of, I don't even know if it's a minority view, but it's a few people that spoke up.
Yeah.
It became very jaded against their right to feel that way.
They have a right to feel however what they want to feel.
And not only that, stories, like we saw. I mean, I read the article.
So is it an I'm sorry.
It was one-sided.
I'm sorry, Rich. So is it an inappropriate discussion when someone gets offended by this to ask them, why are you so worked up about this?
It shouldn't be.
No, you have to. I mean, we have to have that conversation.
You would think, except it makes me an institutional racist and morally and intellectually inferior.
Until we can cut through that and actually, I don't know what the end result of cutting through it is. I just know that we're going to walk out of a room not slinging mud at each other as much anymore. We're going to understand each other's viewpoints because
it sounded like it escalated in this conversation. It didn't. It didn't get less. It escalated.
I don't think. No, I
think it got less.
I think it got less. I think. I mean, you had a point, just like where I had a point where I was yelling. I mean, and frustrated. I mean, I think we got to a point where there was some mutual understanding.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I really, I'm glad she called and explained her viewpoints and stuff, and we also got to ask
viewpoints kind of scare me because I don't see them easing the situation. I see them perpetuating the situation.
But until we unpack all of this stuff and where people feel and where we need to meet, because
what I see is a couple kids that are going out in society with all these thoughts in their head about how I'm a racist just because I'm a white guy. And that the system is up against them, and every cop is against them, and the law enforcement and every judge is against them. Everybody's against them. These two kids, that's the window on the world that they're going to go out in the world with. And how does that help the situation?
I'll tell you what, Lou. I don't think you're a racist. Okay? Just throwing it out there.
You're right. In that concept, if all sides keep perpetuating the same old stereotypes, the same old things that have happened, we can evolve. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like that's the circle we are in. Just in my adulthood,
but
we're in that same circle.
Our leaders are out there. The senior senator from Massachusetts, law enforcement is racist front to back.
She did say that.
No, I mean,
that's what she's teaching this generation.
Yeah.
That's what our leaders say. So what do you think the end result of that is going to be?
Not positive.
How about we find the racist cops and we find the racist judges and we find the racist prosecutors and we do something about them?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happens.
Instead of setting up a generation that's going to go out on the streets in their cars at 16-year-olds thinking that the entire system is out to get them.
The conversation needs to continue. That really is. We have to get to the point where we're not perpetuating the same old stereotypes, the same old beliefs. We have to get to that point, and we're not there yet. We are all in our own little tribes and our little camps, and we're not there. We got to keep moving. We got to keep moving the ball forward, so to speak.
Yeah, I think
we're about to hit that.
We're about to hit the Facebook window.
Oh, that's right.
So we're gonna wrap up the show for today. Hey, listen, I appreciate everybody's comments. I appreciate everybody's viewpoints, and I appreciate Nick Abarisk coming on. I appreciate Jennifer Canan coming on. Appreciate Rich LaRochelle, the surprise appearance with the Chick-fil-A.
Go to Chick-fil-A.
He's bringing Chick-fil-A just to get on the mic. But honestly, it was good to have a third person in the conversation on this. I didn't want it to just be me spouting off and then Lou. So it's good to have a third person, especially somebody that has some a different experience than us. So listen, appreciate everybody watching. We will be back next week, and you can watch this on demand anytime throughout the week here on Facebook or on Twitter. We'll post it on Loop Weekly a little later. Hopefully, gonna start breaking down each one of these breaking out each one of these segments, especially when it's a 4-hour show. We'll break out a segment so it's a little easier watching. For Rich, for Lou, for Jennifer Canan, for Nick, Tim Wood saying, listen, thanks for the conversation, and thanks for the comments, and the conversation continues. We will be back next week here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center.